Alicia Melfont witnessed her family being massacred by the dark god's subordinates in one night, and she vowed to restore the family's glory at all costs. But then she discovered the shocking truth that the world she lived in was just a story in a mysterious book. In that book, Alicia was just a supporting character, destined for a tragic death to glorify the main character. Unable to accept her fate, she was determined to break the distorted plot of the book. Alicia embarked on a journey to rewrite her own ending, resisting the fate bound by the original script, and reaching the pinnacle of life. Everyone, please follow Lisa Manhwa and watch this fascinating series. The story begins with a bustling scene in the royal capital during the 500th anniversary celebration of the Lothen's Empire, with a lively atmosphere filling the entire square. The crimson high heels proudly struck the velvet carpet, each step echoing like a declaration. After 10 years of hardship, this moment had finally arrived. That noble figure advanced towards the light and the sky, where all the hopes that had been buried were now rising fiercely, knowing how many long years she had waited for this day. To be seen by the citizens of Lothen's. For her proud and honorable family. To witness the return of Alicia Melfont. Long ago, the climate was mild, the land fertile, a prosperous land where every soul flourished. Alicia's parents were the most outstanding and respected nobles in the western region, along with her reliable brother and his wife, who were as radiant as the sun. Her family was her pride and happiness, and not to mention a new family member that Alicia's father brought one beautiful morning. He introduced to everyone that from now on, she would live with them. Ophelia, a beautiful girl blessed with divine power. She was very happy to have another sister and companion. Ophelia once gently praised Alicia, saying, "You look so beautiful wearing the Teresa wreath, Alicia, it's like you were born for it." She blushed shyly, it was truly a perfect life, and it seemed that the goddess Mara had smiled upon them. Alicia thought that happiness would last forever. Until dark clouds of misfortune came and cast a shadow over the entire family. It all started with the appearance of that Nyx. She had suspected him from the beginning, there was something hidden deep within his eyes. Even so, Ophelia treated him wholeheartedly, and Alicia's objections could not stop her from bringing him into the house. That was the saintess's only mistake. Ophelia went, Nyx followed. Even though the signs were very clear. But she was so blinded by her hatred for him that she didn't realize that the object of his obsession wasn't Ophelia herself, but her divine power. In the silent dark night, the Teresa petals fell softly. The last petal gently touched the ground, no longer pure purple, but stained red by pools of fresh blood, signaling that the time of the family's demise had come. The truth was revealed that the young wanderer, Nyx, was actually a corrupt priest who began worshipping Arpho, a dark force. And Ophelia's divine power was the key to awakening the sleeping dark god. Nyx's purpose was to extract holy water from Ophelia for the dark god. Because he failed, he instead unleashed the terrible powers of that god upon their land. Thousands of people were sacrificed in the ritual. Including Alicia's family, they sacrificed themselves to buy her time to escape. Alicia, run. Everything she cherished was taken away in an instant. She desperately dragged her skirt and rushed away into the thick night. Demonic hands reached out, clearly reflected in Alicia's wide, empty eyes, like an indelible curse of death. When she tiredly woke up, she heard the cries of a baby in her ears. Alicia found herself in a desolate, vast area. Alone with her nephew, Alfred, in the distance, something shining caught Alicia's attention, that thing. It was her father's signet ring. Alicia picked up the ring, her palm unconsciously clenched tightly, and on that day, she made a vow. Alicia held the crying child in her arms, she vowed to herself to do everything to survive. And bring the Melfont family back from the ruins. Once Alicia restored the family's name, Alfred, her only surviving blood relative, would wear this ring and continue to inherit the family fortune. As for Ophelia, the source of this tragedy, she chose to run away, leaving her foster sister to fend for herself. Alicia only wanted to say that the extreme resentment and hatred she had for her sister made her the person she was today. Back to reality, the whispers continued incessantly. Alicia snorted coldly, coward. To fulfill her ambitions, she discarded the pride of a noble and entered the world of merchants, becoming a wine seller. And with relentless efforts, Alicia restored the Melfont family in just 10 years. 2 noblemen nearby secretly commented on her jewelry, "Look at the size of the gem she's wearing, it must be worth a fortune." The other replied disgustedly, "Yes, a fortune that which scraped together from selling wine, and she calls herself a noble? Huh." The glass of wine next to Alicia's lips suddenly stopped. She turned her head to look at them, and the two immediately startled and shut their mouths. Alicia walked closer to them. She gave a graceful smile and invited, "Sirs, please visit Romdak when you have time. The jewelry of our guild is usually reserved for royalty, but I will show you our goods for free." Alicia deliberately clinked glasses with the one who had despised her, as a provocation, "Because I don't think you have the money to buy them." Alicia calmly turned her head, ignoring the nobleman who had turned red with anger from her sarcasm. "Just whisper behind my back to your heart's content." She strolled leisurely while thinking to herself, the dignity of a noble, those things mean nothing to me, in the end, I'm just paving the way. All this was for her beloved nephew Alfred, until he could stand on his own. Just then, fireworks were suddenly shot into the sky, exploding with brilliant bursts. The nobles were all engrossed in watching the shimmering scene. This made Alicia feel confused. These fireworks, it's just a waste of money, they should rethink the use of taxes. The next moment, a scream came from somewhere, "Aaaaa." Boom, a terrible explosion took place. Amidst the dense smoke, Alicia knelt on the ground, covering her mouth and coughing. What's going on? Cough, cough. Alicia glared, can't waste any more time. Her hand groped on the ground forward, I have to get out of here immediately. Suddenly someone approached from behind, his figure casting a shadow over Alicia. She was stunned, this feeling. Alicia looked up, no way. Nyx looked down at Alicia, he sneered, Alicia Melfont, it's been a long time, hasn't it? She froze, seemingly unable to believe her eyes. Nyx laughed mockingly, so you still survived, you're too stubborn, Alicia Melfont. Alicia cursed inwardly, gnashing her teeth, damn it. She brushed aside her disheveled hair and retorted sharply, so are you. I heard that you were sealed by the clergy of the cathedral on the day you massacred my people. Alicia sneered, but it seems that a lowly stalker like you found a way to sneak out. I thought your corpse had rotted in prison, what a pity. Nyx clicked his tongue. TSK, ha, your tongue is still as sharp as ever. He crossed his arms and looked around, but where is she, where are you hiding her? She wondered, what are you talking about? Nyx's pupils flashed with a sinister light, he questioned Alicia, Ophelia, she's here, isn't she? She cursed in her heart, damn it, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, he mentioned Ophelia, great. Alicia clenched her palms, she was determined, I have to find a way to keep him here until the clergy arrives. Alicia mocked Nyx, poor fool, it seems you really don't know. She deceived him, Ophelia died that day, feeling uneasy, did it work? Nyx froze, his face turned cold and emotionless. He raised the corners of his lips, lies, that demonic arm reached out. Alicia panicked instantly, no. A thud rang out, the arm struck the back of her neck. Thump, Alicia fell to the ground unconscious. The subordinates following Nyx carried her on their shoulders, she closed her eyes, her head slumped down, muttering the name Ophelia in her heart. The ring on her hand twitched slightly, Alicia lamented inwardly, did you ever think that my life would be in danger again because of you, damn Ophelia? Clang, she was locked in a jail cell. Nyx's subordinates ordered the jailer, watch that woman and wait for Lord Nyx's orders. A moment later, Alicia groggily woke up, she was confused, where am I, what's going to happen to me? I can't die here, I still have to take care of little Alfred. And my wine business, wake up, Alicia Melfont. Alicia's forehead bled profusely, she squinted, there's still someone waiting for you. Wake up. Swish, the bats perched on the walls of the cell flapped their wings and flew away. Alicia fell into a void filled with purple hues, where Teresa petals gently floated, like the breath of a dream. Her face was momentarily blank. Alicia turned her head in surprise and looked around, what's going on? Her mind suddenly jumped, am I, in a dream? Alicia complained, I must be too tired. Suddenly there was a rustling sound behind her, and she immediately turned her head. Mysterious light shone down, an open book was placed on the shimmering water amidst the Teresa flowers. Alicia was stunned, a book. She bent down and picked up the book. Alicia asked curiously, a book floating on the lake, what's going on now? The book's title was The Night of Ophelia. She pouted suspiciously, just looking at it, you know it's not a happy story. Alicia turned to the first page, the title of the novel was The Night of Ophelia. But strangely, these pages were all stories of her life, which gradually confused Alicia, it's about me. On each page, the book revealed the terrible truth about what really happened that night. When Nyx unleashed death and destruction on the Melfont mansion, Ophelia did not hesitate to rush to save little Alfred. Then she went straight to her sister Alicia, but when she arrived, Alicia's bloodline had been sacrificed to the dark god. Alicia muttered, the memories are still vague, but they are gradually returning to my mind. That ghostly hand grabbed me. And in just a few seconds, I died. Her forehead suddenly flashed, Ophelia had used almost all of her power to revive Alicia. As for Nyx, he slowly approached Ophelia from behind, and with the last trace of holy water, she sealed the depraved priest, Nyx. With the news that the dark god had been imprisoned, it seemed that peace was within reach, but, 10 years later, the remaining followers of Nyx devised a way to free their master from his shackles. And the servants of Arpho awoke from a long sleep, once again. Nyx began searching for Ophelia again, Alicia speculated, so, Nyx came to the royal capital. Because he sensed Ophelia's divine power in my body? She suddenly stopped, quickly realizing, that's why he asked me about her, if I could somehow control her power, I could deliver a fatal blow to him. Alicia wondered, but how? I have to keep reading, there must be clues in the book, she continued to turn to the second page. It didn't take long for Alicia to realize that she had missed a very important fact. The breath on her body seemed to stop. What is this? The title could not be ignored, because without a doubt, the main character of this story, the Knight of Ophelia, was not Alicia, but Ophelia. After shaking off the supreme power from his path, Nyx went to a remote and desolate part of the land and built himself a ruined fortress called Tantaro. Then he found a way to lure Ophelia into his trap by bringing Alicia to her, one piece at a time. And when Ophelia had to accept the cruel invitation, she had to witness Nyx personally strangle her sister. Ophelia collapsed and screamed, "No, Nyx, stop." He looked at her with a sinister smile. "Thank you, Alicia Melfont, it was your desperate resistance that brought my sanctus here today." Nyx took Alicia's head right in front of Ophelia. Alicia touched her neck in amazement. "What does this mean? Am I destined to die here?" She shouted angrily, "Unacceptable, Ophelia gave me her holy water, I can't die so easily." Alicia hastily turned the pages of the book. "I can heal the wound if I know how to use this power." The plot continued. At the moment when Nyx's blade cut through Alicia's flesh, the holy water that had helped her live for 10 years returned to its owner, imbuing Ophelia with even greater power in her body, mind, and soul. With the power and wrath of justice in hand, this time Ophelia quickly sealed the depraved priest, preventing the return of Arpho, the dark god, ending the story of Ophelia, the darling of Mara and the savior. After reading the book, Alicia was in a daze for a long time. Drip, a drop of salty water fell on the white paper. "What are you trying to tell me?" She cried unwillingly. "Do you want me to die so that Ophelia can have a happy ending?" Alicia froze. "Do you want me to die so that Ophelia can have a happy ending?" She laughed bitterly. "Haha, no, unacceptable." Alicia knelt on the ground. The deadlock seemed to swallow her soul. Alicia whispered, "This is just a nightmare that will soon pass." She hugged her head in pain. "I have to wake up from this nightmare. Alfred is still waiting for me. The people of the Melfont family need me." Suddenly a shout rang out. "Wake up quickly." Alicia startled and woke up. She sat up, supporting her forehead and moaning, "Why can't I wake up? Isn't this just a dream?" Clank. When she raised her wrist, Alicia realized that she was locked with a heavy shackle. She looked around in a panic. Everywhere was just damp, cold stone walls. Alicia thought, a fortress, built in a remote and desolate place away from the scrutiny of supreme power. Outside the cell, angry sounds echoed. "Save, let us out." She quickly realized that they were holding prisoners here to sacrifice to the dark god. A deep voice spoke. "The path of the dark god Arpho will lead your souls into the deepest hell." Alicia was shocked. Nyx's strangeship made things even worse. The sound of bats flapping their wings lingered in the cell. She said to herself, "So this is Tantaro, Nyx's lair." Alicia looked at her wrist. She muttered uncomfortably, "His servants must have forged the shackles too, they're really heavy." Alicia covered her face and sighed. "Hayes, it's going to be fun soon, now everything is happening exactly like in the book." She suddenly opened her eyes wide. "Wait." Alicia looked up at the ceiling of the cell, where hideous spiders were crawling and spinning webs. She was confused. "So that means I'm going to die here?" Alicia encouraged herself. "I can't give up, there must be a way out." She analyzed, "If that book is right, then Ophelia's divine power is now flowing in my blood. Once I find a way to use it, escaping from this fortress will be as easy as pie." Alicia clenched her fist. "Maybe I can even control this power." She gave a smug smile. "To deliver a fatal blow to that bastard Nyx, he will pay for what he did to the Melfont family." At this moment, footsteps mixed with soft voices came from outside. "Is this where that woman is locked up?" "Yes." Alicia immediately jumped, her whole body tensed in a defensive state. She tightened the chains, pushing herself. Think, how did Ophelia gather her power?" Alicia jerked the chains violently, but it still had no effect. "Damn it, I have to do something before they take me away." She closed her eyes tightly, constantly shouting her sister's name deep in her heart. "Save me, Ophelia." At that moment, a ray of light flashed from Alicia's chest. This alarmed the jailers. One asked, "Where did that sound come from?" The other replied indifferently, "The god Arpho must have answered Lord Nyx's request. Finally the Lord of Hell has come to this land." 2 jailers opened Alicia's cell. Their intention to control her was very clear. "Take that woman to Lord Nyx, he can't wait. Get out of here, you bitch." Alicia lowered her head, her expression was so gloomy that nothing could be seen. The jailers unconsciously stopped, a sense of unease arose. A dazzling light appeared on Alicia's forehead. She smirked. "Can't wait to go to hell, then I'll grant your wish." The brilliant light flashed, covering the entire prison tower. In the distance, flocks of birds flapped their wings in fear and scattered. Nyx's subordinates were knocked back by the violent energy. They screamed, "Aaaaa!" Alicia fell, her whole body covered in a dazzling aura. She waved her hand and exclaimed, "Amazing." Alicia floated in midair, rushing through the entire tower with ease. Alicia marveled, "It's real, her power has always been hidden in me all this time." She gnashed her teeth in hatred. To the author who wasted so much ink on the night of Ophelia, you were wrong if you thought I would accept the ending you wrote. Alicia laughed gleefully, her eyes filled with madness. Just wait and see, because no amount of ink can save your book, ha 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 ha. From this chaos, I'm about to remove the seal. Soon, a heavy thud rang out. Alicia fell heavily on the ground, she was completely stunned. Alicia felt uneasy. It seems, it's a bit too much. The highest floor, I pierced through all the floors with just one fall. She clenched her palms, her face firm and determined. Alicia gently lifted her skirt and stood up. Now think of a way to get out of here quickly. She rushed away, ignoring the wounds tearing across her body. Alfred is still waiting for me. Think, Alicia, think. Soon Nyx's subordinates tracked down Alicia's trail. There she is, chase her. She snorted coldly, turning her back and running. One of them managed to grab the hem of her long red dress. Alicia fell to the ground. She pulled the fabric irritably. Oh, I swear, this dress. Alicia suddenly widened her eyes in surprise. Just when she thought she was about to be caught again, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared, stopping all the pursuers. Nyx's henchmen could only stand outside helplessly banging. Banging, banging. Alicia wondered, what are these fools doing there? Looking at the boundary of the barrier, she guessed, aha, my power must have created the barrier to stop them. Alicia grinned smugly, good. She tightened the hem of her skirt. Alicia thought to herself, the only thing you'll get from me is a piece of my skirt. The subordinates angrily banged on the shield. You bitch, get out here now. Bang, bang. She staggered to her feet, the tail of her skirt was torn more than half off. Alicia indifferently observed the subordinates making a fuss outside. She touched her wrist lightly and muttered, your power saved me again, Ophelia. Alicia smiled bitterly, but I won't be grateful for it. She slowly opened her mouth to speak. Well then. Alicia said to Nyx's henchmen, let me ask you something, you fools. Taking advantage of her freedom, she crossed her arms and mocked them. Why would anyone want to be servants of Arfi? Oh wait, Arfo, he doesn't seem to grant you any power anyway. The group immediately went crazy after hearing this. They growled, you bitch, watch your mouth. Alicia turned her head coldly. She walked away indifferently, ignoring the harsh curses. The dark god will punish you, and the sound of heavy pounding echoed behind her. Alicia set foot in a grey land. She stared at the palm of her hand, frowning slightly in doubt. But how did I do that? I don't even know what I did to activate the power. It's difficult to accept, but the only way to escape from here is to use the information in the novel. Alicia tightened her skirt lightly. She speculated, in the end, everything is happening as predicted in the book. According to the novel, there is a pool of water at the end of this tunnel. That place serves to imprison the paladin's power enough to plunge the world into chaos. His name is Norman Diaz. In the original story, Ophelia used the power she regained after her death to free the paladin from the imprisonment of the water stream. This is an important event, so Alicia is determined to interrupt the key turning point ahead. I will do it before her and use him to escape from this place. She looked around anxiously. Let's see. Alicia lifted her skirt and turned her head back and forth, searching everywhere. I don't see any lakes or streams large enough to submerge a grown man. Turning back and forth, her foot accidentally stepped into a puddle. What is it? Alicia startled. She widened her eyes in amazement. Right in front, under the faint light in the cave, was a silver shimmering water surface. Alicia could confirm, here it is. The hidden water stream. She curiously bent down to take a closer look. Alicia commented, but it looks more like a shallow puddle than a water stream. She touched the water surface and said to herself, I have to see what's going on. Alicia lifted her skirt, revealing her fair legs covered with wounds. She walked straight into the water. Alicia estimated, it's deeper than it looks, but the water only comes up to my ankles. Her whole body suddenly staggered. Alicia confused. Thump, she was completely sucked into the deep bottom of the water. Alicia struggled desperately. No. She gritted her teeth and hissed, damn it, I should have known this was a trap. Alicia took the opportunity to search around. Her finger accidentally touched a foreign hand. Alicia turned her head in surprise. Beside her was a platinum-haired man with a handsome face sleeping soundly. Unmistakable, it's him. Norman Diaz. Alicia held her breath underwater. She silently observed Norman's handsome appearance. Alicia unconsciously recalled Nyx's lewd chuckles. She suddenly felt uneasy. Nyx, that disgusting depraved name. I wonder if he imprisoned Norman here because of his looks. Alicia shook her head to dispel the disgusting vision she had just imagined. She carefully looked at Norman, a feeling she couldn't describe rose in her heart. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful person. Alicia proactively touched Norman's ear. She sighed inwardly. He's still very young. It's as if time has been frozen. At the moment the curse was sealed on him, Norman fell into eternal sleep. Alicia pursed her lips slightly. She reached out and grabbed the hem of his shirt. The distance between them gradually narrowed, close enough that Alicia could feel Norman's faint breathing. At that moment, the intention to take advantage of him was completely forgotten. And she knew that she was only acting on instinct. Alicia stopped, suddenly thinking, never mind. She gathered all her strength to pull Norman out of the water, with only one thought in her head: I have to free him first. When they were both safely on the shore, Alicia almost collapsed. Her breath was rapid, exhausted. She blamed herself. I have to train my stamina, if I'm panting like this after only swimming a little. How can I save anyone? Alicia was panting and grumbling at Norman. Huff, huff, let me tell you, I almost drowned you again, you're ridiculously heavy. He didn't answer, his eyes were closed tightly, his face was still white as if he had stopped breathing long ago. She widened her eyes. Wait. Alicia anxiously leaned over Norman. He's not dead, is he? She tried to put her hand under his nose to check. Alicia breathed a sigh of relief. He's still alive, he looks like a princess. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. She anxiously slapped Norman's face. Listen here, princess, you have to wake up before that crazy demon worshipper finds me. Suddenly a familiar voice came from behind, Alicia Melfont. She immediately jumped, horrified to turn her head. Nyx appeared, standing tall in front of Alicia like a lingering spirit. She felt uneasy, for the benefit of. He gave a scary smile and questioned Alicia, where are you hiding Ophelia? She panicked, what are you talking about? Nyx took steps to approach Alicia. She tried to remain calm and replied, did you forget, I told you that Ophelia is dead. He interrupted her, no, you're lying. Nyx emphasized, I can feel her power, still flowing in your body. After he finished speaking, he grabbed Alicia's shoulder violently. His hand was getting tighter and tighter. She cursed in her heart in pain, crazy man. Alicia speculated, he must have felt Ophelia's power when I activated it to come down here. She glared resentfully at Nyx. Just then, his attention was suddenly attracted by something else. Nyx turned his eyes to the side. He wondered, that's Norman Diaz, how did you free him? Nyx gave a distorted smile. It's not you, is it? No. He excitedly turned his head to look around like a madman. It's Ophelia, she must have come here to free Norman. Alicia's mood was extremely tense. She wiggled her fingers on the ground, swoosh. Slap, Alicia slapped Nyx straight in the face. He was stunned, glancing at her in disbelief. Alicia shouted, eat this. She insulted him without the slightest courtesy. That's the divine power that you can't get enough of. Alicia deliberately revealed to Nyx, after sealing you that day, Ophelia used all her remaining power to revive me. Now I am the one who inherited her power. His expression gradually became contorted and shrunken. No, impossible. Nyx held his head and roared in madness. No, 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 grr. Seeing him in so much pain, the resentment and humiliation of the past years of Alicia were finally soothed to some extent. That's right, now you know what it feels like. The despair that I had to go through. Nyx glared at her resentfully. Devil, insidious thing, how can someone like you be worthy of Ophelia's power? His hand trembled and raised towards Alicia. She provoked, that's too bad, you can't kill me even if you want to. Nyx's eyes widened, almost popping out of their sockets. Alicia decisively exposed him. Because you see, that means having to say goodbye to the precious power you've always longed for. Nyx covered his face. He knelt down in despair. I don't believe it, Arg, Ophelia is God's person, she can't die so easily. Nyx slowly removed his hands from his face. His trembling fingers pulled down the skin under his eye sockets, revealing a dazed and lifeless expression. In that moment, he looked as if he had aged 10 years. Alicia frowned. Nyx kept mumbling, repeating some kind of strange language. He suddenly jerked her bruised feet. Nyx looked at her, his eyes shining with obsession. The heavy accusation hissed through his teeth. You liar, you dare to deceive me. Alicia panicked and retorted, you're still saying that, after feeling my divine power from that punch? Alicia suddenly shuddered. A deadly voice rang out above her head, kill this commoner, and Ophelia will return. Nyx gloatingly oppressed her. Hear that, that's the voice of the god Arpho. All I need to do is end you, and everything will return to its original path. After finishing speaking, he reached out and strangled Alicia. She was pinned to the cold ground, her neck was tightened, coughing painfully in despair. Nyx smiled savagely, you don't know what that power can do. The hand strangling Alicia's neck grew tighter. Nyx rambled, all that precious energy will escape from you, which means you're just a useless container, tightening. He gleefully declared, die, Alicia Melfont, die in pain and fear. She tried to push Nyx's hand but failed. Alicia looked to the side, tears involuntarily welled up. No. Despite her tears, Norman was still sound asleep, showing no signs of waking up at all. Looking at the face of the man close at hand, Alicia's heart trembled, the desire to live rose up. I didn't risk everything just to die like this. She opened her tearful eyes, I don't want to die. Alicia was unwilling, it can't be like this. The next moment, a ray of light suddenly flashed. Nyx shouted, He was suddenly thrown to a corner. Alicia breathed out, never before had she felt that air was as important as it was now. Alicia propped herself up, she hugged her neck and coughed, what's going on? A gentle hand wiped away the tears from the corners of Alicia's eyes. The platinum-haired man in front of her gently said to her, you're safe now. Alicia was stunned, it's Norman Diaz. Norman created a sparkling shield to shield both of them. Alicia was very surprised, a divine barrier. She quickly realized, that's why Nyx was pushed away. He angrily raised his eyes and ordered Alicia, TSK, come here, Alicia Malfont. She was startled and scared. Nyx's haunting voice lingered in Alicia's mind, you can't escape me. She froze, I heard his voice in my head. He even threatened Alicia, no matter where you run, you'll have to come back to me. She couldn't bear it anymore. Alicia shouted loudly, get lost. Nyx warned Alicia, I'm giving you a chance to offer your pure body to the dark god. She shuddered, that monster, so he was targeting her body. Norman gently asked Alicia, did that man try to hurt you? She replied, yes, a depraved priest sacrificed all the people of the Malfont land to his lord Arfo. Alicia's tone was full of hatred, he can't be allowed to live, he wondered, are you the daughter of the Malfont family? She lowered her head and choked back her tears, I used to be, but now I'm the head of the family, the only survivor, which doesn't leave me with many choices. At that moment, Alicia suddenly felt Nyx's fierce glare fixed on her. He stood up abruptly, countless blue demonic hands grew out of his back. Nyx smirked, fool. Those hands rushed to attack Alicia and Norman. The hand slammed into the shield, and he immediately used his power to resist. However, cracks still appeared. Alicia worried, he's about to break the barrier. She trembled and grabbed Norman's arm pleading, please don't let him kill me. He stared blankly at Alicia. Alicia looked back at Norman in a panic. He patted her hand lightly and announced, I'm sorry to say this. Norman's eyes swept over Nyx raging behind him. He affirmed, but I can't do anything to destroy that thing right now. He seriously declared, however, we can still buy some time. Nyx showed contempt, Norman Diaz, give up, that terrible barrier won't save you. He gave an arrogant smile, I will tear you apart and offer your blood to the dark god. The demonic hands reached out to them. They touched the shield. The shield was broken in an instant. The hands rushed to control Alicia. She despaired, is it over? In the critical moment, a ray of light suddenly cut through. Nyx immediately fell to the ground, grr. She looked in amazement at the back of the man who did not hesitate to stand in front of her to protect her. It turned out that Norman had created another shield to protect Alicia. She had to admit that, a divine knight with power, overturning the balance of the world. The moment he turned his head, Alicia was even more certain, he was one of the characters in the novel that had predicted her death, this man. It was also a reminder of the dangerous future waiting for Alicia, and the only salvation of her soul. The cave suddenly made a rumbling sound. Rocks fell down. Norman protected Alicia while concluding, we have to leave this place immediately. A chuckle sounded behind him, attracting the attention of O. Nyx collapsed in a pool of blood, his eyes were numb, his smile was distorted and savage, why are you so stubborn, don't you see it's meaningless? His pupils gradually lost focus. Nyx weakly reminded Alicia, deep down in your heart, you know. You're just falling into danger. He manipulated her mind, no matter what you do, death will come. Alicia staggered and hugged her head to refute, impossible, I won't sit still and wait to die. Nyx threatened, you're nothing more than a temporary container for Ophelia's divine power. That sentence caused Alicia's mind to fall into emptiness. Fortunately, Norman discovered it in time. He comforted her, is he talking in your mind? He's trying to weaken you by sowing fear in your heart, you have to resist him. Norman put his hand on Alicia's shoulder, gently encouraging, I know you're strong enough to do it, you're the savior who freed me from the seal after all this time. He firmly affirmed, this time you can survive. Norman told Alicia, please forgive my disrespect, but we have to hurry. After finishing speaking, he lifted her up in a princess carry. Norman vowed, I will get you out of here alive, I swear. The two turned their backs and walked out of the collapsing cave. Behind, Nyx still lay motionless on the stone floor, chuckling like someone who had lost all reason. The corners of his mouth stretched to his ears, his smile was soaked in madness, as if everything was just the beginning. Nyx just left with Alicia like that. Crack, something broke, and the somber voice replayed like a curse, the path of the dark god Arfo will lead your souls into the deepest hell. The path of the dark god Arfo will lead your souls into the deepest hell. Ophelia woke up from a nightmare. She breathed heavily in fear. This alarmed the man in the cloak nearby. Ophelia. Nicholas Diaz, the second son of the Diaz family, stepped forward. He asked Ophelia with concern, you're finally awake, how are you feeling? She weakly asked Nicholas, Nicholas, how long have I been unconscious? How many days has it been since the festival? He replied, it hasn't even been a day yet, don't worry, Nyx can't achieve his purpose. Nicholas gently hugged Ophelia and coaxed, there's still time, he hasn't killed Alicia yet. She unconsciously tightened her arms, blaming herself, I fainted when I was needed most, what a pity. A soldier under Nicholas suggested to Ophelia, I think we have enough clues to find him. My men will identify his lair while you two rest." She calmly stood up and objected. "There's no time left, we have to leave immediately." He was anxious, but we don't know exactly where he's hiding. Ophelia coldly spoke a name, Tantaro. Nicholas curiously asked his subordinate, "Tantaro, do you know where that is?" He replied, "No, sir, I'm not even sure I've ever heard that name." She hesitated. "I can't explain it, but the name and the place where his fortress is hidden suddenly appeared in my mind." Nicholas looked at Ophelia's back in confusion. He pondered to himself, Ophelia's intuition is never wrong. If Tantaro is really Nyx's lair, that will be where I can find more clues about Norman's whereabouts. Nicholas unconsciously remembered Norman's familiar figure, who always reached out and affectionately called his name, Nicholas. Nicholas hesitated, and who knows, maybe he's waiting for me too. He decisively stood up and ordered, "Prepare to set off, Jack." Jack replied, "Yes, sir." On Alicia's side, the moment Norman lifted her up high, she felt lightheaded. "I'm flying." Alicia felt unreal. "Am I dreaming?" He soothed her. "Close your eyes for a moment." Norman got too close to Alicia. The faces of both were too close, making her flustered. "Dude, how can I close my eyes when you're so close?" When he landed, he always held Alicia tightly, protecting her carefully. Norman gently released his hands from Alicia. He put her on a rock, kneeling opposite her, meticulously asking her, "Are you injured anywhere?" Alicia was about to answer, "I think I'm fine." Her heart immediately thumped. Images of the demonic hand suddenly appeared before Alicia's eyes. "I was too focused on surviving and completely forgot. I was attacked by Nyx's demonic power. Not only was I almost killed, but that monster destroyed everything." Alicia's body staggered. Norman immediately panicked and supported her. "Lady." Hot tears flowed from the corners of Alicia's eyes. She hugged her chest and gasped, "It hurts so much, I can't breathe. I survived all those things. Only to die in a place like this, please." Alicia's vision blurred, no longer able to see Norman's face clearly, only hearing his anxious tone, "Calm down." She trembled and fell into Norman's arms, her throat making gasping sounds, huff, cough. His eyes were filled with unease. "She's breathing too rapidly because of the shock." Norman tightened his grip on Alicia's thin shoulders. "I won't let you die here, I swear." He proactively apologized to her in advance. "I apologize if this isn't polite." Norman untied Alicia's dress straps. He widened the outer flaps of her dress so she could breathe easier. Fortunately, Alicia showed signs of breathing evenly. Seeing her open her eyes, Norman was overjoyed. "Do you feel better?" Alicia was dazed. "Am I still alive?" He gave a gentle smile. "Yes, you're still alive." She looked at the palm of her hand and exclaimed blankly. Alicia burst into tears. "The story has changed. Nyx couldn't kill me." She fell into his arms sobbing. I was so scared, but I finally survived. I did it." Norman gently comforted Alicia. "That's right, you're safe now, everything will be alright." Nyx's haunting voice seemed to still linger in her head. "You can't escape death forever, Alicia Melfont." Alicia despaired. "Can I escape that tragic ending in a good way?" He gently soothed her. "Please, lean on my shoulder for a moment." What she needed most now was sleep. Meanwhile, at the Tantaro fortress, Jack asked Ophelia, "The entire fortress has been destroyed, what do you think happened here?" Just then, someone ran to report to him, "Commander, I found the heretical priest, he's lying flat under the rubble." Jack was startled after hearing this. Ophelia urgently told him, "Send a message to the clergy of the temple, he must be sealed immediately." Jack nodded in agreement. "Got it." He turned around and ordered his subordinates, "Lead the way." She stared blankly at the fading sunset. "We will know for sure once Nyx is completely sealed." "I don't know for sure. But something has changed." As night fell, Norman stopped with Alicia at an open space. Before long, the fire he personally lit had blazed. The flickering flames reflected Norman's pensive face. He let out a sigh. "The scenery hasn't changed at all." Norman gently bowed his head. Looking at Alicia sleeping obediently in his arms like a child, the words she once said echoed in his head. At that time, "I am the pillar of my family, becoming the only survivor doesn't give me much choice." He lamented with heartache. "Although the world was turned upside down when I was falling asleep, I can't imagine how painful they were." Memory suddenly rushed back. The image of the black-haired boy being taken away in front of Norman was still struggling and screaming his name. "Norman, no." Norman closed his eyes tightly in pain. "I am to blame for all that happened." On the green prairie that day, he had confessed to Iago. "Norman Zoe, this is my name." He hesitated. That name, Zoe, the name given by God, is only used in the family, the name that Norman revealed to a fellow knight, a comrade and a close friend who faced countless dangers with him. Norman gave a warm smile. "I tell you because I treat you like a blood brother, Iago." He affirmed, "To me, you are family." However, even though they fought together, like the heroes of the Empire, in the end, what awaited Norman was betrayal. He choked up facing Iago. "Why, Iago?" He stood opposite, holding Nicholas hostage. His face was resentful and cursed Norman. Come now, O death, break and destroy the soul of my enemy, Nomen Diasoi. He had not seen the deep hatred in his heart until the red incantations rushed over. Taking advantage of the secret, Iago summoned an ancient curse using the full name of the cursed person, none other than Norman. The curse attacked him, his whole body began to crumble. Norman still insisted on persuading him. Don't do that, Iago, the summoner always pays a heavy price for curses. Igeo sneered contemptuously, I've hated you since the first time we met. Boom, this was like a painful slap that completely stunned him. Igeo gloatingly tormented Norman, everything would be perfect if it weren't for you, Norman, surrender. He declared, and die the way you deserve to be. The curse had spread to his face, however, he no longer felt anything, a tear fell, the mental wound had overwhelmed the pain on Norman's body. Nicholas unwillingly exclaimed, no, the boy kept struggling, let me go. Nicholas unconsciously reached out reflexively and shouted, Norman, at that moment, if Nicholas had not awakened Norman's divine power to stop the curse. His flesh had turned to ashes. Along with the shattered soul. Norman had to sink deep into the bloody cold water because of the extreme hatred created by Iago. Disappear, Norman, die. He was thrown into the endless darkness of the curse. The curse not only tormented his body, but also crushed Norman's mind. His malicious words echoed everywhere, pressing on the beautiful memories between them. I've hated you since the first time we met. Along with Nicholas's mournful cries, don't abandon me, Norman. And Iago with a distorted face laughed gleefully, everything would be perfect if it weren't for you. All Norman could do was wait hopelessly until the end. Deep in his heart, he didn't want to die. Until her voice reached Norman, it's not like that. The person in his arms suddenly stirred, Norman slowly opened his eyes. The crackling fire illuminated his dazed expression. Norman was shocked to realize that he had just recalled the past. He paused slightly. Alicia seemed to be having a nightmare, she kept groaning, Looking closely now, Alicia's forehead, neck and palms were covered with wounds. Norman frowned, his eyes flashed with heartache. He reached out and gently touched her forehead. Norman's pupils unconsciously widened. He thought to himself, her body is too hot. Norman became hesitant, I shouldn't rely on power too much, but there's no other choice now. The next moment, his hand suddenly shone brightly, Norman lovingly treated Alicia. He was worried, she was traumatized, both in body and mind, that's obvious after what she's been through. She pulled him out of the lake with all these wounds. Norman unconsciously tightened his arm, and he wasn't something bright either. He thoughtfully pulled the blanket higher for her, was it the fear of death that gave her the strength to move forward? At the same time, Norman also covered her tightly so that Alicia wouldn't get cold, or rather, it was her will to live. Norman leaned back against the tree trunk tiredly, he looked up blankly, what a strong desire to live, she makes me wonder what kind of person she is. Norman was a little vague, maybe I will learn more about her when she wakes up. Can't remember the last time I was excited. Waiting for tomorrow to come like this was what time again. In the book The Night of Ophelia it was written, thanks to Alicia's sacrifice, everything became possible. Alicia woke up in a panic. She hugged herself in horror, my hand is still here. Alicia trembled and raised her hands to confirm, I'm not dead. She gradually calmed down, I'm still alive. Alicia snorted coldly, damn book. She turned her head uncomfortably, huh. Alicia found herself lying on a pure white mattress, bed. She recalled in confusion, I only remember escaping from Tantaro, the rest is too vague. Alicia hugged her head and screamed, I can't remember anything. She looked around in confusion, where am I, what is this place? The door opened, Norman walked in happily carrying a basket of apples, I'm back. Alicia loudly questioned, who are you? Thump, the basket of apples in his hand fell down. Norman gaped, it turned out that she was grabbing the collar of the homeowner and threatening them violently, don't even think about deceiving me, tell me your true identity. Nyx's henchman, the old man helplessly, I'm just an old man. He hurriedly stopped Alicia, please calm down, they're very good people, that's why they let us stay here for free. She breathed irritably, that's even more suspicious, why would they do that without getting anything in return? The old homeowner explained shyly, your dress is torn, I can tell you don't have any money left. Alicia was stunned, not understanding what they were saying at all, however, when she reached out and touched her body, she understood her situation, wearing the old woman's nightgown. Lost one earring, the signet ring could not be sold, Alicia's property was that the shoes had disappeared, leaving only her bare feet. Alicia collapsed in despair, my silk dress and jewelry, Norman apologized to the two homeowners on her behalf, please forgive us, the couple replied kindly, it's okay. He sincerely thanked them, his handsome face suddenly shone brightly, thank you both for understanding, she's been through a lot, so she's not as polite as usual. The two homeowners were moved by Norman's radiant aura, what a kind-hearted boy. The screen changed to another scene, Norman closed the door, Now there was only him and Alicia in the room. He breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, she must be shocked. Norman advised her, "You woke up sooner than I thought. I should have come back earlier to explain to you." He added, "Anyway, I'm very happy to see you recover." Alicia didn't bother to listen to what Norman said. She absent-mindedly stroked her flawless white arm. "The wounds have healed." Alicia wondered, why did I recover so quickly? She suspected, "It's thanks to your divine power, right?" Norman immediately startled. He put the fruit basket on the table, deliberately avoiding Alicia's question. "You must be hungry, because we don't have money to buy anything. I found food in the nearby forest." Norman handed her a juicy red fruit. "Here, it's edible." Alicia took it in surprise. She suddenly felt a little uneasy. Mr. Norman," he asked curiously, "what is it, lady?" Alicia stammered, Who put on the dress for me while I was sleeping?" Norman answered honestly, "Of course it was the old woman. Your dress was wet and full of mud." She nodded. "Ah, I see." Alicia hesitated. "And another thing." She asked him continuously, "How long has it been since we escaped? Where exactly are we? I need to know. What happened to Nyx after Tantaro collapsed?" Norman wondered. "Nyx?" Alicia replied, "Yes, the skinny priest who attacked you. His name is Nyx." She seriously requested, "I want to hear a brief but detailed explanation of what happened." Norman pondered. He explained, "Nyx took a fatal blow from divine power. He will be paralyzed for at least 2 weeks, or even a month, if it doesn't last longer." Norman was extremely self-reproachful. "It's a pity I couldn't finish him off when I had the chance. Being sealed for too long has depleted so much of my power." When chatting, he always wore a bright smile on his face. However, this made Alicia suspicious. "He keeps talking and smiling. It scares me." Norman recounted, "You slept for 2 days without waking up. After escaping from the fortress," she thought in panic. "Slept? I thought I was unconscious the whole time." He continued, "I carried you through the forest until I found this village. This place must be Thule." Alicia speculated, "Thule, a village near the border between the royal capital and the eastern region." Norman praised, "You know the map so well." She estimated, "Not too far from the headquarters of the Romdak Guild. It must be easy to find my way back." He interrupted, "By the way, lady." Norman hesitated. "I want to ask." She was straightforward. "Ask." He hesitated. "Why did you?" Norman hesitated and asked Alicia, "Why did you know I was in that lake?" His voice was a little resentful. "I feel so lost." Norman felt disappointed in himself. "You are my savior, but I don't even know who you are, or why you saved me from that water." Her heart was in a mess. "Be careful. I can't say that I read about him in a dream. That would be funny." Alicia crossed her arms, pretending to answer indifferently. "I just heard that the eldest son of the Diaz family has been missing for a long time." She lowered her eyes flashed darkly. "And when I found you sealed under the water in Tantaro, I had a hunch that person is you." Norman was curious, "So do you know the reason why Nyx kidnapped and sealed me?" Alicia was silent. Maybe she didn't know either. Alicia revealed to him, "His goal is to become an apostle of the dark god Arfo. Thousands of years ago, Arfo removed the seal for the 7 deadly sins throughout the world. And humans began to slaughter each other with the newly discovered blasphemous powers. Seeing his beloved children on the verge of extinction, Mara, the goddess of life and the creator of the world, who gave his holy water to mankind, defeated the dark god and sealed him. Then the goddess limited and imprisoned Arfo's fallen curses in a book. To drive them out of the memories of his children, mankind kept the book deep in a temple, to hide it until the end of time. However, Nyx, a priest bestowed with divine power, easily touched the forbidden book. Nyx declared, "Freedom and hatred, let's curse our enemies. That is the only way to be freed." Cursed magic and Arfo's control were given to others. Die was too sweet a temptation for Nyx. Die was too sweet a temptation for Nyx. A mediocre priest yearning to be worshipped. After defeating Norman, Nyx ordered a knight to seal him in his prison, as a trophy to commemorate his first act in the name of a servant of Arfo. Alicia pondered, "I want to be an honest person, but I can't say directly that he is the devil's living trophy." In the end, she had to reveal the truth. Nyx used his divine power to seal and curse you, then went to the Melfont land. Alicia closed her eyes and recounted with difficulty. Until then, he was still a priest of Mara. He was bestowed with the power of darkness. It wasn't until he massacred the people of Melfont that he was bestowed with the power of darkness. A disturbing story that she never wanted to know. She ended the story with a sentence, "In the end, Nyx was defeated by Ophelia, but his servants brought him back." Alicia tightened her arms, "And the first thing he did after waking up was kidnap me and take me back to his prison." Norman said awkwardly, "I'm sorry for your loss." She asked him cheerfully, "All that is in the past. Has this made you understand better?" Norman replied, "Yes, thank you." He frowned, his eyes flashed with sadness. "So much has happened over the past 10 years. The head of the family told me that this year is the 500th anniversary of the founding of the Lot Hens Empire. Norman scratched his head shyly. Nicholas must have become a grown man by now. I feel very guilty for making him worry for so many years. He also didn't forget to introduce to Alicia, Nicholas is my beloved younger brother. Alicia remembered that guy's unpleasant clicking tongue and felt uneasy. Nicholas Diaz, I've met him at a few parties. Norman looked at her with sparkling eyes and asked in a hurry, so you've met him before, is he well? Alicia answered one thing, he's very healthy indeed, but thought another, how could he not be healthy, he's flirting with Ophelia. She smiled slyly, her face was full of dark lines. You'll be very surprised, if you see how much he's grown, Alicia secretly condemned in her heart, if you see how arrogant he has become. Norman gave a bright and pure smile, I can't wait any longer, feeling relieved, she was speechless, yes, I'm also happy for you. He was apprehensive, by the way, lady. Norman asked Alicia, it seems I still haven't asked your name. Alicia replied, then please allow me to introduce myself, I am Alicia, the head of the Melfont family and the leader of the Romdak Trading Guild. She extended her hand towards him. The two empathized and shook hands. Norman felt so happy, nice to meet you, family head Alicia Melfont. Nyx's voice whispered, Alicia Melfont, find Alicia Melfont. He commanded arrogantly, bring Alicia Melfont alive before me, then it will be. Nyx hadn't finished speaking, when Nicholas and the group in white robes around used the power of light to seal him. Jack and Ophelia stood in the distance observing everything. He muttered, this is a headache, I didn't expect so many fugitives to escape. Ophelia indifferently turned away and left, I'll recapture them all. Jack panicked, he hurriedly chased after her to stop her, but Alicia Melfont hasn't withdrawn the wanted order yet, it's very dangerous for you to act like this. Ophelia didn't turn her head, only leaving one sentence, if it doesn't work, use a similar method, everything must be different, we must find another way. She was uneasy, if things are left like this, Alicia Melfont will be in danger. Jack was confused, what? In another development, a person in a green robe quickly ran into the forest. The old man suddenly stopped. The old man's eyes flashed with a ghostly light as if someone was controlling him, his tone was intermittent like a robot, click, let's, tear apart, Ollie, CIA, Melfont. To offer to the great god Arfo. On the Melfont estate, a notification sounded, there's a letter for you, sir. The person behind the table immediately stood up. Erica silently opened the letter to read it on the spot. She muttered and read the contents inside, on behalf of the knights. I have equipped the most elite army for the Lord of the Empire, relating to the vital responsibility of the widespread unrest in Lothens recently. Nicholas stood by the city gate looking at the receding figures of the two knights. Then he suddenly turned around abruptly. The contents of the letter continued to describe, during the journey to the western border of the Empire. We have identified Tantaro, the prison of the heretic, Nyx. There, we learned that the people had been kidnapped and murdered by the heretics, to sacrifice to the dark god Arfo. When we arrived, Tantaro had collapsed due to a mysterious attack, and the clergy at the cathedral had imprisoned the crippled Nyx, to seal him once again. Unfortunately, the whereabouts of the young lady kidnapped at the party have not been found. Several of Nyx's servants have escaped, so we advise avoiding contact with any preachers or dubious beliefs. Erica quickly read the last words, signed, Nicholas Diaz, Knight Captain. The maid next to her asked curiously, what is this all about? Erica tried to choose her words carefully, well, what we know now is that Lady Alicia wasn't in the fortress when it collapsed, the maid hesitated and echoed, so. She lowered her eyes and spoke a painful speculation, maybe the lady was killed and her body was disposed of before the night arrived. But then Erica tried to hold on to hope, or maybe she escaped. Sparkling dishes were laid out on the table. Alicia was constantly sharpening her knives and forks. Norman pushed the door open and suggested, let me get you some warm drinks. She turned her head and put the cutlery down on the table with a clang. Alicia was chewing and calculating to herself, the novel doesn't write too many details about him, I don't know him. Norman's figure flooded her mind, she must resist him. He constantly urged Alicia in the past, I know you're strong enough to do it, you're the savior who freed me from the seal after all this time. Norman looked directly into her eyes and promised, I will get you out of here alive, I swear. Even when thinking back, Alicia still felt, how sweet. She quickly put down the knife and thought, the novel, humph. On the first day, I was kidnapped at the festival and imprisoned in the dungeon in Tantaro, and for the next 2 days, I was unconscious. That means 3 days have passed since I left the Melfont estate. I've taken advantage of the little time I have to resist the plot of the book and preserve my life, but I still don't know whether there will be enough time to change my final tragic ending. Alicia stabbed a piece of potato with a fork and secretly affirmed, but one thing is for sure. The more I delay going back, the more dangerous my nephew will be. Cousin Gale will definitely try to replace me as the guardian of the property for little Alfred. He had his eye on the Melfont family's property before Alfred's parents were murdered. Not to mention my stupid fiance, Philip Morfolk. I know he's been waiting for the opportunity to get his hands on the money, and run away with the girl he's infatuated with in bed. Without me, Alfred will be completely dependent on the looters, just like I alone resisted the greedy nobles, who revealed their true colors when our family collapsed. Alicia gritted her teeth and muttered, "If you think I'll let it go, you're wrong." She suddenly stood up and exclaimed, "First of all." Alicia decisively stated the plan. "I have to go to Catham, the nearest city, because she knows well in her heart that it's where the Romdak Guild operates. But what worries her most now is, and the money to pay for the trip." Looking at the earrings that were shining, Alicia happily opened her mouth. "Here it is." The next problem made her even more headache, "But I don't have the ability to go alone in this area." Alicia decisively pushed the door and left the room. She politely asked the woman in front of her, "Excuse me, do you know where to hire soldiers without having to pay in advance?" They asked back in surprise, "What about your husband?" Alicia exclaimed in confusion, "Husband?" At this moment Norman stepped in their voices, "Speak of the devil." He cleverly gave a harmless smile. And she frowned so hard as if she wanted to kill a fly. Norman naturally pulled her hand. Then he asked affectionately, "You must be very hungry, my love." Alicia grew a bunch of question marks and responded, "I just ate 3 cakes, wait, what did you call me?" Norman pushed her out the door and urged, "Let's go into the room." The old man kept exclaiming, "Amazing, amazing," and the old woman chuckled thinking to herself, "When you're young and immersed in love." As soon as Norman entered the room, he apologized, "I hope you will forgive me, lady." Alicia crossed her arms and thoughtfully analyzed, "Yes, well, it's definitely more convenient. Is to explain why we're traveling together." Then she looked directly at him and stated her position, "But I'm an influential person, Mr. Norman. If we go somewhere and they recognize me, there will be unnecessary rumors." Alicia boldly stepped forward and suggested, "It's best to tell them the truth, because we're about to go our separate ways." Without thinking, Norman immediately denied, "We won't be going our separate ways, lady." Alicia looked at him preparing to kneel down and blurted out, "What?" Norman reached out his hand and begged, "Please. He just said what he wanted, please allow me to escort you all the way to the estate." Alicia was stunned and didn't react to this action. She froze stiffly, all the words she wanted to say were stuck in her throat. Alicia was very confused in her heart, but now I can't focus on my own safety. She has an urgent goal, regaining control of the territory is the top priority. And Alicia needs to do it quickly. However, Norman may be an obstacle to this goal. The return of the eldest son of the Diaz family will cause everyone to scrutinize and lead to accusations. Moreover, just his handsome appearance is enough to attract crowds, and this is also a trouble that Alicia doesn't need. But really, his existence makes her feel uneasy. To her, he is an existence reminding her that the curse of the book is real. Alicia lowered her head and expressed her feelings, "You're making me uncomfortable." Norman unconsciously felt confused. She heard him say a sound "oh" and was very suspicious. It turned out that Norman jumped to a new idea. "From now on, let's drop the husband and wife act. I promise to be more careful in the future, I swear on my honor." She looked at his sparkling eyes and secretly sighed, "Oh yes, that's part of the problem, but..." Alicia took a deep breath and enlightened the other party, "No, you don't understand, Mr. Norman." She lowered her eyes and shared her achievements. "In the past 10 years, I have revived the Melfont house with my business." Alicia confidently declared, "Our power no longer comes from the family, but from trade and profit." She didn't hesitate to reveal her weaknesses to him, "We choose survival over the dignity of nobles." Then Alicia pointed out the difference between the two sides. They will welcome you with open arms, but it's a completely different story for me." Alicia grasped the hem of her skirt and stated the nearest scenario, "Seeing you come back with the witch of the Melfont house." She powerfully shouted, "The harsh reality only gives them more reason to take me down." Norman was speechless after hearing all these heartfelt words. Then he sadly admitted, "I understand now." Norman stood up and reviewed himself, "I admit I haven't been able to keep up with the changes in the world over the past 10 years, Alicia turned her face away and said to herself, "It seems he's in pain." He looked directly at her and seriously corrected his mouth, "Let me explain what you just said again." Norman analyzed for her very intuitively, "You need to quickly return to the Melfont estate, because some people are taking advantage of this opportunity." He also frankly drew a scenario that made Alicia's blood boil, "But going out with me will likely attract unnecessary attention. As a result, she lost money and suffered harm in the whispers." Norman moved towards Alicia with expectation, "Right?" She stared blankly at him to the point of losing her language ability. Faced with this silence, Norman wanted to market himself even more. He excitedly lifted his shirt and showed off his firm biceps. Alicia looked at this action and still couldn't say a word. Norman reached out his hand to her and made an inviting gesture, accompanied by a radiant smile. He gently pulled up the hood of his cloak. Norman's beauty was also somewhat covered up. If mixed in with the old men, this appearance is indeed not outstanding. Alicia rubbed her chin and hummed softly. She turned to Norman and screamed, "Enough, I understand." But Alicia was still not convinced. Alright, let's just say you're as good as you say. He immediately gave an explanation. Oh, but I'm not just talking, I'm just telling the truth. Good word choice, my lady. She slightly stretched the distance and made a suggestion. Try to put yourself in my perspective to hear how you say it. Norman was somewhat disappointed. Oh, I'm still not convincing enough? She quickly denied. It's enough, but you make me wonder, why do you want to go with me? He frankly presented his point of view. I am a knight of the Lothen's empire. I have an obligation to protect the people of God. Alicia retorted immediately. If you want to fulfill your obligations, like Mara, you can go to the slums. Norman tilted his head to remind her. Hey, you forgot, lady, I owe you a life. Now Alicia remembered. Well, I helped you escape from that stream, but anyone could have. Before she finished speaking he interrupted. It's more than that, you saved my soul. She widened her eyes and asked back. What? Norman took this opportunity to explain in more detail. My body was indeed sealed in that stream. When recalling that feeling, he was still uncomfortable, but my soul was sinking deeper and deeper. A suffocating feeling wrapped around Norman's soul, down to the abyss of the body. Alicia asked suspiciously, abyss? He put his hand on his chest and emphasized, I owe you not only my life but also my soul. This is my personal desire to escort you to the Melfont estate. Norman boldly stated his desire, and see you return to your rightful place. These heartfelt words stunned Alicia. He reached out his hand again. So please, give me a chance to repay your kindness. She stared blankly at his hand. Finally Alicia made a decision. Okay, maybe I'll give you a chance. The two just quietly held hands. Norman gave a bright smile and shouted, Lady. Alicia observed him intently. She coldly reminded, put it in writing first, the bodyguard contract. Norman was stunned. Contract? Alicia frankly stated her position clearly. Yes, your point of view on the benefits of traveling together is reasonable, but there are still some risks, so there must be a contract. This contract will prevent the parties from having bad intentions, not through smiles or handshakes. She raised her index finger to signal, for the benefit of both parties, we must be careful. Norman suddenly laughed. Alicia immediately asked back, you don't agree? He reached out to wipe away his tears and then said, I'm sorry, it's just the way you explain it. She directly criticized, I don't see anything funny. Norman leaned closer and said a compliment. It's rare to see someone so knowledgeable about the ways of the world. This flattering compliment could defeat Alicia, her face unconsciously flushed. She shyly turned her back and suggested, then I'll draft the contract. Norman smiled and pointed to the door. No, lady, we have to do it together, for the benefit of both parties. He bowed his head respectfully. Thank you for your hospitality, we will definitely come back when the time is right. Bow. The old couple stood at the door to see them off. Take care. The old man grinned and praised. How nostalgic. The old woman also covered her mouth and replied, Ho ho, you weren't as handsome as that when you were young. They left when the sunset just appeared. This contract is signed by Alicia Melfont, Party A, and Norman Diaz, Party B. He pinched her finger to remind her, just relax, lady, we'll attract unnecessary attention like this. When arriving at the Melfont estate, Party A will compensate Party B for the services available in the room for 30 days. The amount will be calculated based on the number of working days. Norman leisurely followed the terms, and we have to hold hands like a loving couple. Party A must hide if Party B feels it is necessary. Alicia lifted Norman's face and laughed. I even have to help you cover your face? Sure enough, the third item in the contract clearly stated, Party B must cover their face and body when outside. Norman quickly turned the two around when someone passed by. He hugged her and breathed out, Phew, I'm glad I agreed to sign the contract. For the honor of a Knight of Mara, Party B will protect the life of Party A. Alicia awkwardly pushed Norman away. I'm a little too worried, it's just a passerby. When the two were in Thule Square, on the way to Catham, she suddenly exclaimed, Oh, I think we're here. The doorbell rang. The shop owner looked at the earrings and confirmed again, You want to sell this item? He examined it carefully and hummed softly. Then the shop owner glanced at the price, 1 gold coin at most. Alicia angrily slammed the table. She indignantly enlightened him, the gemstone on those earrings was bought by the Rondak Guild, and polished by the most famous artisan in the royal capital. Alicia pulled down the hood of her cloak and shouted, And you only value it at 1 gold coin? The shop owner stammered and asked back, Do you work with Rondak? Alicia angrily warned, If you can only pay that much, then I won't sell it. She didn't hesitate to squint and remind him, But remember that this will be your last transaction with us, because Rondak won't supply goods to this shop anymore. When Alicia asked back, Then what will happen? The shop owner suddenly stopped. He rubbed his hands and smiled politely, Then I'll pay more than the market price, just for you. She lowered her eyes and seemed to ponder. In Alicia's heart, a sea of memories flooded back. I became a merchant and learned the tricks of the trade. Only for the recovery of the people and the Melfont family. The farmers had no choice but to return to the ruins that they once called home. At that time, she suddenly heard a call, Lady Alicia. The women there kept coming forward to comfort. Oh, look, you must have worked hard. The desperate servants who had been lucky enough to escape. All those lives weighed heavily on my shoulders. Alicia even had to face malicious public opinion. They kept whispering when she spoke. Hello, I'm here on behalf of the Romdak Guild. I used to be the fragile, weak girl of a noble family, who could do nothing but sit quietly in a carriage around the mansion. A girl carrying the shock of a harsh world. At that time, Alicia had to face the doubts. Ha ha ha, I've never heard of it, really. Is this wine safe to drink? We'll consider buying a few bottles if you drink a whole bottle right here. Everyone looked at her and whispered, snickering, Romdak, what is that? They didn't hesitate to discuss in front of her. I heard the guild was newly established by a noble lady, how funny. Alicia tilted her head and drank the wine gulp. Her heart was full of determination. But I no longer have time to lament my fate, because poverty and famine are my enemies. She drank to the point of coughing. She heard a concerned voice in her ear. Are you okay, lady? Alicia knelt down gasping. Her mouth kept saying, I did it. The maid worriedly went to her side to comfort, lady. Alicia wiped the corners of her mouth and announced the good news. They agreed to buy our goods. At that time, she only had one thought left, honor, dignity. Only by discarding those things can I protect my life. Those memories stopped. She just stared at the money bag in front of her. Norman lowered his voice and expressed concern. You look too pensive. Is something wrong? Alicia turned her eyes to the person opposite her. Then she said a sentence that startled the shop owner. I hope the owner is a discreet person. He cautiously opened his mouth. Is there anything else you want me to help with? Alicia covered her mouth and said her request. If rumors about me are spread, I want to be supported. She calmly uttered a firm word. Spread the word that Alicia Melfont is coming to Catham. In the small pawnshop, only Alicia's voice was left. Tell them that the owner of the Romdak Guild is back. It wasn't until she left there that she had a chance to relax. Phew, that's really tiring. At this moment Norman again announced the bad news. We don't have enough money to rent a place to stay. Alicia nodded to show she understood. Renting a place to sleep is fine, but as the owner of Romdak, I can't let my secret actions affect the guild's reputation. Alicia decisively stated the plan for the upcoming schedule. We will have to sleep outside until we reach Catham. The members of the guild will help when we get there. Moreover, she herself also had quite high requirements, and I want to spend money where I know I can get quality service, rather than throwing money at disreputable places. Norman rubbed his chin and revealed the information he knew. Commercial centers like Catham attract a lot of criminals. He boldly reminded her, we have to send a message to your knights, so they will know when you arrive. Alicia sadly said the truth. The Melfont family no longer commands knights. She didn't hesitate to expose the wounds of the past. 10 years ago, the integrity of the knights ended on that fateful night. Our knights were murdered, and no one wanted to swear allegiance to a fallen noble family in a dilapidated land. Norman could only say a bland "oh." Alicia optimistically reassured him, it's okay, we still recover without knights. He suddenly blurted out a sentence as if praising, it must be thanks to Romdak. She remembered when she declared, tell them that the owner of the Romdak Guild is back. Her face silently flushed red and thought, how embarrassing. But Alicia still tried to appear calm. Ahem, that's true, now the guild is the prosperity of the Melfont family. When the food was served, Norman was curious, how did you start becoming a merchant? She mumbled and revealed, with lotus flowers. He repeated in surprise, lotus flowers? Alicia began to share her journey to wealth. Disease spread throughout our land, destroying crops and blocking the livelihoods of craftsmen, when I thought there was no other way. Something suddenly caught my eye. At that time, she had accidentally seen lotus flowers on the lake. Alicia keenly recognized their value. Lotus leaves are used to make very fragrant tea, and the flower stalks can be used as fuel. But she also had a headache about it quite a bit. However, retail tea and fuel are not enough to revive the family. Thanks to that pressure, Alicia made a bolder decision, so we found a way to use lotus flowers to make more profit. Lotus flower wine, a special drink only brewed by the Melfont family. That's how we became the first noble family in history to establish a guild. Alicia shared this with a proud tone, and through that act of trading, we built a foundation beyond imagination. Next, she smoothly pushed the boat along the water and took the next step. Then we reinvested gold in other fields to make more profits, land, property, gemstones. Alicia increasingly expanded her sphere of influence, swords and ships used to protect our people and trading ships. She propped her head and shook the glass sighing, to everyone, I am an emotionless, money-grabbing witch. Every party I attend, everyone is talking behind my back. It can be said that I exchanged respect and reputation for money. Norman clenched his fist and silently assessed, so that's why she's so knowledgeable about the ways of the world even though she's still young, and very sensitive when mentioning rumors. But on the surface, he still maintained a smiling appearance. As far as I can see, pursuing benefits to help the people be well fed is more worthy of respect than stubbornly clinging to the honor. Of the nobles and doing nothing for the miserable people. Alicia unconsciously smiled when she heard those words. She took a sip of water in her glass and gently said, I stopped caring about honor and dignity a long time ago. At this moment, a complaining voice rang in her ear, Humph, that damn enchantress. Whispers kept surrounding Alicia, isn't that the guild leader? The bitch who was killed at the festival? Oh, it seems that she's still alive and kicking, what is she doing here? A drunk boldly opened his mouth. I recognized those purple eyes at first glance, she's using the guild's name to control Catham, what a nuisance. They spoke more and more unrestrainedly, aren't all nobles stuck in mansions, reading books and drinking tea? She's just bored and has nothing to do, so she's blocking our way of making money. Alicia comfortably ate and secretly admitted, well, they're not wrong. She calmly held the knife and fork, her heart was harder than steel, I've always been prepared to face these insults. I am a thorn in the side of other merchants, and a lower-class person to the nobility. Alicia knew she was just a noble who sold wine, because she wasn't familiar with anyone. Another snickered and sneered, no matter who she is, the goddess is displeased with her. They kept murmuring at the table, yes, I've heard about the Melfont family, I bet there are tons of ghosts haunting her. But there was one important thing that I missed. Alicia's memory suddenly recalled the saying, that bitch should have died with the family that day. Norman's heart rate suddenly increased. That there was the presence of the sleeping prince in the forest that no one wanted to provoke, Alicia calmly reminded him, just ignore them, I'm used to being talked about behind my back. It's okay. Norman stammered and denied, no, not at all. A suspicious voice rang in his ear, Mr. Norman. He suddenly shouted loudly, not at all okay. Norman rushed towards the group of people and shouted loudly, not at all. The restaurant suddenly made a crashing sound. Norman quickly swung his fist up. He punched the face of the one who talked the most just now. The sound of crashing and thumping mixed together. Alicia raised her eyebrows and secretly criticized, he can't even fight properly, these people are just threatening. She rubbed her forehead and cursed secretly in her heart, but he's fighting in the bar again, humph, damn it, we're going to get in trouble. Alicia decisively stood up. She loudly warned Norman, enough, you're going to kill him if you keep going like that, I told you it's okay. He didn't turn around but questioned, but you're not like that. The fatal question made Alicia freeze stiffly. Norman looked up and affirmed, you're not okay at all. Alicia stubbornly pulled his hand, let's go, get out of here, but Norman was as stubborn as an ox, these scum will learn how to shut their mouths. She whispered in his ear, don't make a big deal out of it, you idiot. Norman stared blankly at her. At this moment a group of muscular men rushed over and shouted, you dare to hit my brother. Alicia suddenly took Norman's hand. He widened his eyes at this sudden touch. She frowned tightly and ordered, come with me quickly, or I'll leave you here. The group of people watched their backs and shouted, they're running away, chase them. When they had run a long distance, Norman opened his mouth to remind, you're running out of breath, lady. He looked at Alicia who was panting with fatigue and looked worried, are you sure you're okay? She was extremely annoyed in her heart, I told you I'm okay, why is he so overly concerned, this is a violation of the contract. Alicia frowned tightly and made a miserable decision, I'll cut this out of his salary. But the more she thought about it, the more angry she became, and it won't even make up for the damage he caused. On top of that, she still heard Norman nagging in her ear, please, lady, go slowly, you'll get sick again. Alicia snatched her hand away and shouted loudly, I'm too tired of your excessive concern. She didn't wait for him to react and blurted out, see, I told you, are you going to attack me now? Norman raised his hands and put on an innocent look, of course not, why would I do that? Alicia immediately mocked, yeah, the descendants of the noble Diaz family have made it clear that they can't stand all the vulgar language, what's stopping you from punching me in the face? He had to take all the blame on himself, I apologize if my actions at the bar made you uncomfortable. Norman tried to justify his actions, but because I'm a knight, I can't let those people act so indecently. Alicia still shouted irritably, so what does that matter? She tightened the hem of her skirt and emphasized, those lowlifes weren't wrong. She lowered her head and slandered herself, Alicia Melfont is a disgrace to the nobility, a wine-selling bitch who abandoned her personality for money. The wind suddenly rose around the two people. Norman sadly opened his mouth and confessed, I can't agree with the bad things they say about you. He put his hand on his chest and tried to explain, just like how I refused to believe in the dark words that the curse whispered in my ear. These words stunned Alicia. Norman continued to pour out his heart, every moment I was in that water, it was always filled with voices urging me to die. He used his own experience to explain, I thought it would be okay if I just ignored them, but no. So when Norman heard the indecent words, that bitch should have died with the family that day. He widened his eyes and heard those insults day after day. And the lewd laughter ha ha ha. He had also experienced the feeling of being mocked and ridiculed, everything would be perfect if it weren't for you, Norman, die, die. All those things gradually made me believe that it was better to die. Not long after that, it was no longer a voice, but myself trying to kill myself. In Alicia's heart she automatically repeated, myself. Norman still calmly continued, Lady is a very strong person, unlike me. He looked at his hand and reminded, but no matter how strong you are. Norman clenched his fist and affirmed, the wounds caused by the words of others don't just disappear. Norman looked directly into Alicia's eyes and solemnly emphasized, don't let them do that to you. She turned away in confusion and left a sentence, okay. Alicia rubbed her shoulder and made a promise, I'll stop belittling myself, you should also learn how to control your emotions. Norman stared at her back. Alicia turned her head and asked again, promise? He gently responded, I promise. She crossed her arms and returned to the main issue, well, because those thugs might be chasing us, I think we should go through the forest until we get to Catham. And in her heart she had been cursing all along, damn it, sleeping outside again. Norman couldn't read her mind, so he still smiled calmly. He cheerfully looked up and praised, the night sky is full of stars, lady. Alicia trembled and rubbed her arms. Norman delicately put his cloak over her shoulders. He didn't hesitate to put up a star of hope, then you'll be able to peacefully watch the night sky in your mansion again. The bright moonlight and the rustling of leaves seemed to echo these words. The morning sky was clear, the air was cool and gentle, carrying the chirping of birds from the canopy of trees. Norman was sleeping soundly under the shade of the green leaves. His face was peaceful, his eyes were closed, sleeping soundly. He blinked slightly, his eyes opened dimly. A black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. Norman sat up abruptly, his hands and feet froze with worry. When he recognized that the black shadow was Alicia, he called in surprise, Lady Alicia. Alicia had a compliment, nothing escapes your vigilance, Norman smiled happily and replied, a knight must always be ready to fight enemies. Alicia crossed her arms, smiled and said with a suspicious expression, constantly vigilant, She then teased him, but you slept like a log, and even snored. Norman was startled and panicked, oh my. Alicia covered her mouth and chuckled, I'm just kidding. Norman glanced at the luggage that Alicia brought with her. Seeing that the luggage was neatly and carefully prepared, Norman praised, it seems that you have prepared for the trip more than I have, lady. Alicia's face showed a very proud expression. Oh, you flatter me. Norman slowly stood up, his face was dazed when he heard Alicia's words, no matter what. Alicia smiled and said with a reliable tone, our shoes won't wear out anymore. The flag with the Teresia flower fluttering in the wind. Suddenly a large-scale caravan of the Romdak Trading Company appeared. The caravan began to roll, the sound of horses' hooves echoed steadily and rhythmically in the quiet space. The caravan slowly continued to move forward. Norman put his hand on the green leaves that were swaying in front of him. He gently pushed the branches that were blocking his view to one side, smiling and saying, the emblem of Romdak. Norman and Alicia sat nestled next to the bushes by the roadside. Norman's face said brightly, I didn't expect us to meet a member of the guild so soon, it's like God has eyes. Alicia's sad voice rang out, God doesn't help anyone, Mr. Norman, not even me. She frankly stated her point of view, anyway, I will refuse help. Sadness flickered in Alicia's eyes, her expression said firmly, only I can help myself. After that, Alicia and Norman quickly rushed out onto the road, blocking the path of the caravan. Alicia shouted loudly, stop the carriage, Stan. Even though Stan was sitting in the carriage, she could still hear every word that Alicia said clearly, I know you can hear me. The grumpy guard shouted loudly, Madam Stan is in front of you, you're blocking the path of the temporary owner of Romdak. Stan waved his hand to signal the guards and said, wait. The door of the carriage slowly opened. Alicia and Norman's faces were full of expectation, watching the carriage intently. Stan, the temporary owner of the Romdak Trading Guild, stepped out heroically. She came to stand in front of Alicia and Norman, the atmosphere became very tense and suffocating. Stan glared, her eyebrows furrowed, looking very uncomfortable. Alicia's eyes narrowed full of determination, not wavering at all. Stan suddenly ran, rushing forward quickly. She suddenly hugged Alicia tightly. Norman's eyes widened in surprise, his mouth gaping with surprise. The caravan also stopped slowly because of this, the sound of the wheels gradually subsided. Stan cried and sobbed while lamenting, I thought we really lost you this time, hoo-hoo, Alicia thought uncomfortably, can't you see me sitting right here? Stan continued to hug Alicia tightly, she kept crying and whimpering, oh, my poor lady Alicia, you didn't eat carefully again, did you? You're all skin and bones now. Alicia thought to herself, I ate so much that I'm all bread now. Norman smiled as he watched Stan care and worry about Alicia, he was secretly happy in his heart, it seems she's a good person. Suddenly a bright light flashed, Stan asked curiously, what's so shiny? It turned out that the light came from Norman's aura, from his platinum hair to the flawless lines of his face. Stan stared at his strong body and firm hands. All those things combined into a perfect person, sparkling and mesmerizing. Stan's cheeks flushed. She quietly whispered in Alicia's ear, I have to say this, lady, dump that Philip Moorfuck and love this guy. Alicia shouted in horror, Stan, please, it's Moorfolk. After hearing Stan's words, Alicia suddenly realized, thinking back. She focused on considering what Stan had just said, I don't need knights anymore, now I have Stan and Romdak's guards. Stan smiled and praised, good, very good, he has enough qualities of a man. Alicia was still hesitant, going with him will only cause more trouble. After making a decision, Alicia called out, Mr. Norman. She reached out her hand and went straight to the point, we will prepare a horse or horses for you, to ensure your safety when returning to your family. Norman's face was blank as if he still didn't understand what was happening, lady. Alicia's tone was very firm and decisive, it seems this is the right time to end the contract. Norman was silent and didn't say a word. Stan also awkwardly glanced at Alicia. Norman's face drooped, he thought gloomily, I won't accept it, oh my god. Norman looked at Alicia with pitiful eyes. Alicia, although her heart ached, resolutely refused, you can't look at me with those puppy dog eyes. Alicia coldly continued, your salary will be paid according to each item of the contract, however, one day will be cut for the brawl at the bar, horses and carriages will be provided for free. Norman sat still and motionless, he clenched his hands tightly when he heard Alicia make a suggestion, let us say goodbye when we get to the end of the road. Looking at Norman's sad and pitiful face, Alicia sadly thought, I wish I could ignore him. Norman clenched his palms and said, I'm very scared, lady. Alicia's eyes were a little surprised. Stan also looked at him in surprise. Norman gently expressed his feelings, the world has changed a lot over the past 10 years, I have become a stranger. Norman's eyes turned red as if he was about to cry, he choked and asked her, can I find my way home myself? Stan said tearfully in sympathy, oh, how pitiful. Alicia's whole body suddenly stiffened when she saw Stan's reaction, you decided from the moment you saw him, didn't you? Stan took Norman's hand and gently patted him, don't worry, you can come with us. Alicia immediately objected, Stan, thank you. Norman smiled softly as if he had been given hope, he asked her cautiously, is that okay, Lady Alicia? Witnessing Norman and Stan's sparkling and radiant eyes, Alicia worriedly thought, I can't refuse bluntly, without embarrassing myself here. Alicia rubbed her head helplessly, she sighed and said, okay, but you won't come to the Melfont estate with us, got it? Norman's face immediately became happy again, got it, lady. Alicia glanced at Norman with determined but also helpless eyes. She reminded him once again, remember that, Mr. Norman, we will part ways in Catham. The sun gradually set, and the sunset fell on the Melfont estate. The servant immediately reported to Erica, we have found the young lady, she is at the inn with Madame Stan's entourage. Erica calmly replied, okay. Erica immediately corrected the servant, it's not that we found her, but that she found us, that's how the young lady does things. The servant made a suggestion, perhaps we should escort her back here, a safer place. Erica immediately objected, there's no need to bother, Lady Alicia doesn't have the patience to waste time. She put her hand on her chin and slowly calculated, it's best to just leave it to Madame Stan, she's very reliable and also capable, and the lady also knows Catham like the back of her hand. Suddenly the door of Erica's office made a loud noise. Gano suddenly broke in and asked, so where is Alicia now? Erica frowned and said irritably, I said that no one is allowed to do. Gano, the representative of the Romdak Trading Guild, smiled and said playfully, you should have informed me when you found her. Gano slowly walked closer to Erica. Erica asked curiously, why do you think I would do that? Erica's face was very serious and said, and I have to remind you that you should call the young lady with full respect, she is your master, not a friend. Gano glared angrily at Erica, Alicia is the only one who is allowed to judge, not you. Gano leaned closer to Erica, he gave a sinister smile and said, your whispered conversation behind the door makes me want to go see if my boss is okay, after all. Only she can free me from this slave contract. Erica angrily slammed her hand on the table, she snapped, you said slave contract, it's a legitimate labor contract. Gano quickly interrupted Erica, I didn't come here to argue with you, Erica. Erica didn't hesitate to remind him, then please leave and don't do anything rash, the lady is the owner of the Romdak Guild, she will come back with the Romdak Guild. Hearing this, Gano immediately turned around and left. Before leaving, he declared loudly, I don't think so, because I will be the one to bring her back. Gano quickly went outside and slammed the door shut. The servant looked at Gano and said worriedly, oh dear, this is going to turn into a mess. Erica's eyes said sharply, then what are you waiting for? She hurriedly ordered, quickly warn them before that crazy ape gets to town. In the evening at Catham, Alicia's inn, Alicia's voice rang out full of comfort and ease, ah. She leaned back on her soft mattress with a bright smile, this is living. She looked around the room and said with satisfaction, I didn't gain anything on the way home, but a dry bed and a solid ceiling are still more luxurious than sleeping in the forest. Her eyes suddenly became gentle and kind, thinking back. She remembered Norman's efforts and thoughtfulness before and felt grateful. Mr. Norman tried his best to watch over me throughout the trip. Alicia wiggled her hands and feet and thought to herself, wait, why do I have to feel sorry? He's just working for a salary. She lay on her side and seriously thought, but now that I'm in Catham, I have to think about the next step. I can't just like him and kick him out. There must be a gentler way. She widened her eyes as if she suddenly remembered something. She sat up abruptly, clenched her palms with fiery determination. That's right, the contract. Add a clause to specify the expiration date. After thinking of the plan, Alicia immediately went to the room to meet Norman. She lingered in front of his room for a long time with many concerns in her heart. She mustered up the courage to knock on the door and said to herself, this is something that needs to be done, it must be ended neatly. The door gradually opened, and the light inside the room reflected on her face. Norman's smooth hair fluttered in the gentle breeze, gently stroking past. Norman was wearing a neat and solemn outfit, his face was flushed and he called her, Lady Alicia. Alicia's eyes seemed to be fascinated by his beauty. Norman kept calling her, Lady Alicia. His whole body exuded a dazzling aura that made Alicia look at him without moving her eyes. Stan's voice rang out from inside the room, I can't wait to see your beauty in this outfit. You don't have to worry, the clothes are coming. If possible, we will sweep all the shops in Catham. Alicia stepped in and asked, what's going on? Stan happily said, perfect timing. Stan pointed to Norman and praised him, he looks good in everything. The guards also agreed with both hands, he is definitely an angel sent down by God. Norman sobbed and looked at Alicia with pleading eyes, Lady Alicia, help. Alicia hugged her head helplessly and sighed, don't be fooled by his appearance, Stan, this man used to be the commander of a night squad, he's not the type of person to be dressed up at will. Norman wondered in his heart, is there something wrong with my appearance? Stan defended her point of view strongly, he can get everything he wants with this appearance, even though he's been away from humanity for a decade. Her eyes flashed with fierce passion, it's only fair to let him experience the things he's missed for so many years. Alicia said casually, you must be very free. Stan replied happily, oh ho ho, of course. Stan said innocently, it's been a long time since we had time to rest and you're back. Alicia frowned and calmly thought, in times like these, people need to clarify who is responsible. Alicia suddenly hugged Norman's arm, she pulled him away and said, I have an important contract to discuss with Mr. Norman on behalf of the guild. Her expression was stern as she instructed, and I hope not to be disturbed. Alicia continued to remind her carefully, even if it's you, Stan. Hearing this, Stan immediately lowered his head in obedience, of course, Mississippi. Just tell me if you need any help. After that, she quickly rushed out of the room immediately. Norman's face was full of smiles as he said, that was a quick resolution, miss. Alicia crossed her arms and said seriously, well, I wasn't lying to her. She turned to look at him and explained, you and I need to discuss a contract. Norman's expression was stunned, but he also looked at her with great concern. Alicia quickly got to work, sitting down and starting to write down the contract. As she wrote, she explained the terms of the contract to Norman, let's see, you will be provided with transportation, cash, and food during the trip to the family's estate. Norman stood still when he heard her talk about the last term, you will leave in a week. I've added some clauses to the contract. Alicia glanced at him and asked Norman for his opinion, would you like to see the changes? She was surprised to see Norman intently looking at the scenery outside the window, Mr. Norman. He looked at the bustling city below and said with a longing tone, those people out there look so happy. Hearing this, Alicia stopped writing and stood up. She walked over and stood next to him, looking to see what was below. The people were happily strolling the streets under the warm streetlights like a festival. Alicia thought in surprise, it's this late and the streets are still so lively. She immediately told Norman, they're celebrating the founding of the empire. It will last for a month, and people will have fun until late at night. Norman gently touched the window and softly replied, I understand. He whispered quietly with bright, excited eyes, they look so happy. Alicia quietly looked at him and thought to herself, it's just a normal festival anyway. Does he find it familiar? Or perhaps he's just reminiscing about the world after a decade of imprisonment. Alicia cheerfully offered, if you want, our guards can take you on a tour. Norman asked in surprise, really? Alicia agreed and carefully instructed him, yes, but you must cover your face. The letter announcing that you're still alive has only just been sent to your family. It's my responsibility to ensure you return safely. Norman replied with an excited expression, I certainly won't cause any trouble. His voice suddenly became quiet, oh, but... He sadly asked her, aren't you coming with me? Alicia turned her face away, giving a forced laugh, probably not. I have a mountain of work waiting for me, hee hee. Norman then said in a particularly serious tone, then I have no choice but to remind you. He leaned closer to her face and continued, about the terms of the contract. Down on the streets, the cheers and laughter of the people were extremely lively and bustling. Alicia went out to the streets with Norman in a listless manner as if forced. She thought helplessly, this is really unfair. Earlier in the room, Norman had reiterated the contents of the contract. The contract is valid for another week, even though you've added clauses. Norman reached out his hand and said, and since I'm a knight, it's my duty to always be by your side throughout the term of the contract. He clenched his fist and placed it on his chest, whispering, I can't move around freely without your presence, miss. Alicia cried silently in her heart, he's manipulated me into coming along. Norman suddenly took out a hairpin with purple gemstones, matching Alicia's eye color. He brought the hairpin close to her face, admiring it and praising, purple suits you very well. A mysterious shadow suddenly appeared on the roof, secretly watching Norman and Alicia's movements. It was Nyx's henchman, muttering to himself, my lord, my savior. His whole body emanated a strange and gloomy light. He glared angrily and said, I've come to subdue this defiled soul and fulfill your wish. Then the henchman suddenly disappeared, his voice still lingering in the wind, the path of the dark god Arfo will lead your souls to the deepest hell. In a flash, he appeared right behind Norman and Alicia. A stranger suddenly rushed past, and Norman reflexively pulled Alicia back and hugged her tightly. Norman looked around and said worriedly, there are too many people. He reached out to Alicia and cheerfully offered, take my hand, miss. Alicia immediately refused, I don't like being overly cared for. From then on, the henchman secretly watched Norman and Alicia from behind. His eyes flashed with a dangerous blue light. He said resentfully, come here, Alicia Melfont. A blue flame suddenly appeared on his hand, and he kept cursing Alicia, come to the deepest hell. Just as the henchman was about to attack, a hand suddenly reached out in front of him. Gano's large figure pressed close behind the henchman. He gagged his mouth and threatened, shut up, or I'll slit your throat. In that situation, Norman and Alicia continued to walk forward leisurely, unaware of what was happening. Gano tied the henchman up in a dark alley and interrogated him, who is that bastard? Gano delivered a powerful punch to the henchman's head. He shouted angrily, I can't follow them because of this old dog. Gano glared, grinding his teeth in anger, damn it. A few hours earlier, Gano had a conversation with Ophelia. He asked with doubts, what are you doing here? Ophelia did not answer but firmly reminded, just do as I say if you want Alicia to return to the estate safely. Gano grabbed Ophelia's arm and yelled angrily, who do you think you're talking to? You're a wanted fugitive, give me one reason not to throw you in jail. Ophelia's expression was extremely firm as she said, that's not a suggestion, but a warning. Ophelia walked closer to him and said, if anything happens to Alicia because you interfere. She leaned close to Gano's face and declared resolutely, I will kill you myself. Remembering Ophelia's previous warnings, Gano angrily grabbed the henchman's clothes. He lifted him up and began to interrogate, answer my questions quickly if you want me to let you go. Gano immediately went straight to the point, did Nyx send you? How many of your accomplices are here to kill Alicia? Gano smirked triumphantly, so that's how it is. He threw the henchman violently to the ground. Gano smiled sinisterly, drew his sword and said, I wasn't planning on letting you go anyway. The sound of the sword slashing sharply rang out, and fresh blood splattered everywhere. A slender hand was picking the petals of a Teresia flower. The petals fluttered in the gentle breeze, and Norman said in surprise, oh. Alicia explained to him, Teresia flowers, some fortune tellers use them for divination. The person picking the petals was a child fortune teller. Norman looked at her with a bewildered expression, this is the first time I've seen that flower. Next to the child fortune teller was a basket full of Teresia flowers. Alicia continued to explain, they're wildflowers, not often found in gardens. Alicia's tone became very excited and interested, their unique color and shape are very attractive. Alicia then told Norman about their short lifespan, but if they're picked and put in a vase, they'll wither in less than a day. Norman turned to look at her and said, you seem to know a lot about this flower. Alicia's eyes suddenly drooped as if filled with untold feelings. Alicia shared with a sad face, it used to be my favorite flower. Every time she saw Teresia flowers, childhood memories would flood back into her mind. Ophelia loved Teresia flowers. She recalled a beautiful morning, once, we were happily smiling together in a field full of those beautiful flowers. Alicia remembered the moment Ophelia put a Teresia flower in her hair, she was the most pure-hearted person I've ever met. At that time, Ophelia had smiled and said to her, Teresia is my favorite flower, and it also makes me think of you, Alicia. Her mood was heavy with negative thoughts in her mind, and it still is. The world's mouse always whispered and talked about Ophelia. They said that Ophelia brought Nyx in, a pure saintess and a fallen priest. Unbelievable, they must be in cahoots with each other. Even so, Alicia always remembered Ophelia, however, what I think of her is irrelevant. The shadow of suspicion will always follow her wherever she goes. Around that time, Erica reported the situation to Alicia, the Emperor has ordered the detention of Miss Ophelia. Alicia was still hesitant and troubled, what should I do? Erica gave her opinion, since you're the victim, you have the right. The Emperor will accept it. Alicia looked at the vase of flowers on the table and remembered the sincere words that Ophelia had once said, "You're amazing, Alicia. How come the flowers are still so fresh even after you put them in a vase?" Her eyes were filled with sadness, and Ophelia's voice still echoed in her ears, "Oh, but don't tell me how to do it." She clenched her fist, regretting the past. Keeping it a secret means you'll stay by my side and admire them forever. Alicia immediately stood up and made a decision: offer a reward for Ophelia's capture, she will be imprisoned immediately. She thought with heartache, as a citizen of the Empire and the master of the Melfont family, I still have to fulfill my duty, no matter how cruel it is. Although worried, she resolutely issued the punishment for Ophelia and sent her to the Melfont prison. In the moment of seeing the Teresia flowers, Alicia suddenly remembered her precious memories of the past. That was how our beautiful time came to an end. The image of Ophelia in Alicia's eyes was always associated with Teresia flowers, with a bright smile that always spoke of gentle things. Perhaps you're the one chosen by the queen. Even such delicate flowers grow day by day in your nurturing hands. The fluttering Teresia petals pulled Alicia back to reality, and she stood silently in the crowded street. Her face was gloomy as she muttered, "That's nonsense." Norman asked curiously, "What?" She pointed to the child fortune teller and made a suggestion, "It's nothing, how about getting a fortune reading? Just for fun." Norman's face lit up with excitement, "Can I?" Alicia gently replied, "Of course." So the two went to the child fortune teller, and Norman greeted, "Hello." He held the Teresia flower in his hand and gently asked, "Can I get a fortune reading?" Even though only his eyes were visible, his face still radiated a sparkling warmth. The child fortune teller looked at Norman with gentle, affectionate eyes. She suddenly reached out towards Norman, and Alicia's face was stunned. "Oh." She shouted in panic, "Be careful." The child fortune teller grabbed Norman's hooded cloak. She quickly pulled the hood down, revealing his platinum blonde hair fluttering in the wind. The passers-by were very surprised to see this. "Oh, silver hair." The crowd quickly gathered to whisper and discuss, could it be the missing eldest son of the Diaz family? Alicia's face scrunched up in anger, "Damn it." She quickly grabbed Norman's hand and pulled him away. The two ran as fast as they could to avoid attracting attention, and Alicia shouted anxiously, "Run." The passers-by buzzed with discussion, silver hair and golden eyes, it must be Norman Diaz. What's he doing in town? I heard he went missing a few years ago. Hearing those words, Gano muttered, "Don't be blindly worried about that guy." He glanced around and thought to himself, it would be faster if I let those guys from Romdak find Alicia. Just then, the whispers of the passers-by accidentally reached Gano's ears. "Who is Mr. Norman with?" "A lady with purple eyes." Gano's face was shocked and worried. "Purple eyes?" A fallen Teresia flower suddenly caught his eye. He smiled slightly and immediately realized, she was just here, Alicia. Gano walked closer and placed his hands on the shoulders of the people who had witnessed the situation earlier. He gently asked, "Can you repeat that? I really need to know which way that lady went." Meanwhile, Alicia and Norman had temporarily taken refuge in an empty lot. Norman suddenly realized that Alicia had been holding his hand tightly the entire way they ran. He recalled her cold words earlier when she refused to hold his hand, "I don't like being overly cared for." His face immediately lit up with flushed cheeks, embarrassed and shy. Alicia glanced at Norman with an annoyed and uncomfortable look. Norman bowed his head sadly and said hesitantly, "I'm really very sorry." Seeing Alicia suddenly burst out laughing, Norman quietly continued, "Something like that won't happen again." Seeing Norman clutching the Tesseria flower tightly in his hand, Alicia said in surprise, "I didn't expect you to take the flower." Norman's face was blank as if he had unconsciously held the bouquet. Without realizing it, "Oh." Alicia suddenly burst into tears of laughter. How is that little girl supposed to make a living without flowers? There will be rumors again, a poor fortune teller robbed of her tools by Mr. Norman. She reached out to wipe her tears and thought to herself, "Oh, I laughed too hard." Seeing Norman's pitiful and guilty appearance, Alicia encouraged and comforted him, "Oh, come on, I'm just kidding. I'm sure she'll be compensated." Norman slowly reached out towards Alicia. He gently touched her shoulder and said dejectedly, "I hope I didn't upset you." Alicia replied calmly, "People are talking about it, but what's done is done. And I need to practice too, it's been a long time since I ran like that." She freely shared her childhood with Norman. "I used to be a sickly girl who stayed indoors all day, so a friend asked my parents for permission to take me out to pick flowers." Her tone suddenly dropped and became a little choked. "We used to happily play on the hill and enjoy every breeze. It sounds ironic, right? Now my health is much better. But I'm no longer free to run around like that." Her words were heavy with lingering emotions and regret. In the end, a young lady must maintain her appearance. Norman smiled softly, looking at her with gentle, loving eyes. Looking at the bustling streets outside, Norman said wistfully, "I should have been more careful." If we hadn't been caught, we might have run a few more laps. We haven't even seen all the festival yet. Alicia also thought to herself, that's right, we had to run away before we could visit other shops. Alicia pointed to Norman's forehead and said, try frowning, wrinkle your eyebrows right here. Norman frowned uncomfortably as Alicia said, that's right, sometimes the only thing you need to keep people away is that facial expression. She imagined Norman's arrogant and unpleasant appearance and suggested, why don't you try walking around and spitting on the streets? She laughed, appearing very pleased with her idea. No one would think the son of the Diaz family would behave so rudely. Hearing this, Norman seemed unable to hold back his laughter. He clutched his stomach and laughed, and Alicia reminded, don't laugh anymore, I'm serious. Norman looked at her and said softly, I know, Mississippi. His expression made Alicia wonder, what is it now? He stared intently at the palm of his hand and confessed, I keep forgetting that I was imprisoned in that water for 10 years. He sincerely shared his innermost thoughts with her. At first, I was surprised to see myself easily dismiss those painful memories. He slowly moved closer to her and said, but now I know why. He gently placed his hand on her cheek, looked at her with adoring eyes, and whispered, it's because I have you by my side. Alicia held a wreath in her hand, and Norman, wearing a cloak that covered his nose and mouth, walked side by side with her on the street. Her face was flushed with embarrassment, and she had 100 things she wanted to say but couldn't bring herself to, only able to secretly look at Norman, secretly look. The wreath was like magic, making Alicia not know what to do. She clutched the wreath and thought, that wreath makes me so flustered. Looking at Norman's smiling, curved eyes, the only thing visible, Alicia immediately blamed the wreath she was holding. It's definitely because of the wreath. She remembered the moment before when Norman stroked her face and said in a loving voice, it's because I have you by my side. Suddenly, a purple petal gently fell on Norman's nose, fell. Looking at his blank face made Alicia burst out laughing. Pfft. Then, when she looked back, her eyes widened in surprise. Norman held the bouquet in one hand and was quickly weaving the flower stalks together into a circle with the other. Happiness shone on his face. Alicia called him hesitantly, Mr. Norman. After weaving it, he twisted the knot again to make sure it was secure. Twist. Norman handed the wreath to Alicia, hesitantly expressing to her, this wreath is probably completely different from the one your friend used to make, but... Alicia held the wreath made of Teresa flowers in her hand, staring. After looking at them for a while, she interrupted him, her cheeks quickly flushing, it's beautiful. Teresa flowers never disappoint me. Just then, the sky was suddenly illuminated by a series of fireworks, and the sound of fireworks exploding rang out, boom, boom. Norman reached out to catch the sparks from the fireworks falling down, his eyes filled with longing. He looked up at the sky and unconsciously said to Alicia, I wish we could see them closer. Sparks fell around the two, reflecting the light, glittering, sparkling. Alicia also looked up at the sky and said calmly, this is just to promote tomorrow's festival. They're saving the best part for the main day. At this time, the fireworks were still being launched, and Norman looked up, staring unblinkingly at the fireworks in the sky, dazzling. Alicia scratched her neck, then sighed softly in her heart, Hayes, I wish I could ignore him. She thought for a moment, then opened her mouth to Norman, if you like watching fireworks. Then she advised him, then you have to disguise yourself carefully. Hearing her say that, Norman couldn't hide his surprise on his face. Then a bright smile immediately bloomed on his face, radiant. He picked up a few strands of hair, then quickly said what he needed for the disguise, I need a bigger hat, and a corresponding cloak. If so, I can cover my eyes and hair. Alicia imagined Norman's appearance for a while, thinking of him waving his hand and calling her, Mississippi. She felt that this appearance wasn't very good. Thinking of this, she immediately voiced the doubts in her heart, wouldn't it be difficult to see the road like that? Norman quickly replied with a very obvious look, you can lead the way for me. I'll hold on to your sleeve tightly. Alicia was startled and stammered, sleeve? However, on Norman's bright smiling face, there was absolutely no calculation to be found. He smiled brightly and reached out his hand in front of Alicia, trust me. This plan is great, but I can't do it myself. You have to be by my side tomorrow. As he spoke, his hand gestured to hook pinkies with her, glittering, sparkling. Alicia's face immediately turned red, flushing. Finally, she compromised with Norman, also hooking pinkies with him, I guess that's okay. Then, she laughed self-deprecatingly, ha. Alicia held her head and shouted in pain, first it was Ophelia, and now it's Mr. Norman, the most beautiful character. Finally, after internal struggle, she had to admit that she was fascinated by beauty. I can't deny it anymore, I must be obsessed with beauty. While Alicia was still feeling depressed and tired, in front of her, there were two boys chasing each other. The cries of the two children rang noisily throughout the area, wait. One of the boys, distracted by playing, didn't pay attention to his feet and fell to the ground with a thud, thud. Alicia was startled and immediately ran to the boy. Are you okay? The child pushed himself up, crying out, Auuu. Alicia reached out her hand, asking the boy with a concerned voice, can you stand up? Seeing the scene in front of him, Norman's heart suddenly twinged, thump. The boy looked up, his face had a light scratch, his eyes were still teary, but he quickly thanked her politely, thank you. The boy's appearance reminded him of Nicholas when he was young, the moment he struggled and screamed, no, let me go. Norman's breathing became increasingly rapid, and images from the past gradually took over his mind, Hawk, Hawk. At the same time, the voice of the boy's friend rang out, he's okay, just a scratch. The boy looked at his friend and quickly thanked Alicia, thank you for helping us, Mississippi. The other boy also smiled innocently in response to her, yes, I'm still alive and kicking. The two boys ran and waved goodbye to Alicia, and she called out, don't stay out too late. Then, while waving goodbye to the children, she exclaimed, children these days are so good at enduring. Turning around, looking at Norman's strange appearance made Alicia wonder, huh? He was bent over, his hands clutching his chest, and the sound of heavy breathing rang out laboriously, Hawk, Hawk. His whole body was shaking, Norman was almost unable to breathe, and Alicia, seeing him about to faint, quickly asked, are you all right? However, in response to her words, there was only Norman's heavy breathing and his hands clinging tighter to his chest, HAAA. Immediately afterwards, he collapsed, and Alicia rushed to support Norman, calling out in panic, Mr. Norman. Norman slumped on her shoulder, unable to stand up for a moment. He muttered, speaking and breathing with difficulty, I'm sorry, Miss, Hawk, Hawk. After a while, Norman had gradually returned to normal. He slowly said to Alicia, that boy reminded me of Nicholas. I saw reproach and anger on his face. Alicia secretly looked at him, probing Norman, could it be that your brother blames you for what happened? Norman slowly stood up, in fact, then separated himself from Alicia, separated. His back was full of loneliness, and his voice was also full of regret and self-blame, I'm not sure if my family will still welcome me. I don't think I can look Nicholas in the eye. But Alicia didn't deny it, she only told him that, your family will be very happy to see you return safely. Norman affirmed to her with certainty, no. The smiling eyes from before were no longer cheerful. He frowned sadly and told Alicia, I ruined my brother. What happened must have left a scar on his sensitive soul. Hearing these two words, Alicia asked herself in her head, not knowing if she had misheard, sensitive. He didn't look into her eyes, but turned to another direction. Then remembered what happened before, he was taken hostage. He recalled that at the time, he was sealed by Iago's magic, and Nicholas had witnessed all of that. When Iago cursed me on that day, can you imagine the trauma he suffered? The more he told, the more guilty Norman felt, worse, my disappearance forced him to shoulder the responsibility of the eldest son at a very young age. He clenched his hands into fists, then sadly affirmed, he doesn't want to see me again. Clench. After hearing him tell everything, Alicia stood there for a long time without saying a word. Looking at his evasive eyes and self-reproachful words, she felt sorry for Norman's situation, the guilt being twisted by his perception of everything. Remembering Nicholas's personality, she was completely sure that he would not alienate his brother. It's true that Nicholas is very arrogant and proud, but he's not a fool who would shun his brother for being a victim. She was absolutely certain of what she thought, and I'm sure that's how it is. All of the above was written in the novel Ophelia's Night, because everything was written in that damn novel. Alicia reviewed the contents of the novel in her head, when Iago cursed Norman's shattered soul, the moment he called out his cursed brother's name, Norman. At that moment, he awakened the power within him, Nicholas awakened his divine power. Iago held Nicholas tightly, shielding his eyes from the dazzling light emitted from his brother. No, it's almost time. Seeing the curse gradually forming on Norman's body, he became even more excited, I'm about to get him. Just before his goal was achieved, the curse on Norman's body vanished, stopping right before reaching its target. Vanish, the curse backfired. At the same time, a surge of negative power rushed towards Iago and Nicholas, with all the power that the negative emotion had provided. He cried out in pain, "Aaaaa," then threw Nicholas to the ground, disregarding his situation, thud. Also that night, he could only widen his eyes and watch the painful scene before him in despair. That night, Nicholas could only watch helplessly. He could only watch Norman being taken away without being able to do anything, his brother being taken away like a living trophy. Nicholas trembled and reached out his small hand. The scene at that time always appeared in his mind, tremble, tremble, and the memory still burned brightly in his mind. After growing up, no one was sure if he hated his brother or not. Did Nicholas resent his brother for abandoning him? At this time, the boy from that year had grown into a tall, powerful young man. Contrary to Norman's thoughts, on the contrary, the king made an announcement to Nicholas who was approaching. "Congratulations, you are now the new leader of the knights." He knelt on one knee before the king, who held a sword and placed it on his shoulder, then declared, "The goddess will watch over you, kneel." Nicholas didn't hate or blame his brother. He knew that what he had gained was due to his brother's disappearance. He knew that he had gained the perseverance and newly discovered strength thanks to his brother's disappearance. After being appointed as the leader of the knights, Nicholas began his journey to find Norman. If it weren't for that experience, he would never have had the courage to go out and search for Norman everywhere. The journey of searching had helped him gradually improve himself. Nicholas's search not only made him better. Along with that, was his love affair with Ophelia, but also led him to the beautiful Ophelia, his lover. The plot continuously ran through Alicia's head. Norman is the missing piece in the story of Nicholas Diaz, the male lead in Ophelia's Night. She stood quietly in front of Norman, not saying a word. Then sighed softly in her heart, "Hayes, that's right, Mr. Norman." Finally, made a major conclusion in her head, perhaps unintentionally, but he is the reason why his younger brother went where he needed to go. Looking at the sorrowful and self-reproachful appearance of the person in front of her, she didn't know what to do, and I'm very confused and don't know how to explain. The night was dark, the surroundings were quiet, the houses were all turned off and everyone was falling into a beautiful dream. At this time in the bedroom, Alicia hugged her face tightly, gloomy. In the end, I still didn't reveal it, Hayes. Even though it wasn't something she needed to do, she still felt guilty. This isn't my business, why do I keep worrying about it? But when she remembered Norman's eyes and pitiful appearance, Alicia still unconsciously felt soft-hearted. She quickly waved her hand, brushing the image out of her head. "No, get out." Alicia quickly calmed herself, giving herself a reason. "Because Mr. Norman is a descendant of a noble family, that's why I can't stop caring. Meaning, the blame will fall on me if I can't bring him back to his family." Finally, Alicia made up her mind. She clenched her fist tightly. "Clench." She said to herself, "And I've always hated being misunderstood," then thought to herself, "Okay, I'll bravely face it." A moment later, she decided to go find Norman. Seeing her at the door, he greeted her with surprise. "Miss." Alicia didn't say anything, just stared at the person in front of her. Then she asked Norman, "Can I come in? I have something to talk to you about." And Norman looked at her with a tense expression clearly on his face. After entering the room, Alicia stood at the door. She crossed her arms and frankly told Norman, "I'll be blunt, I know that returning to your family isn't your top priority." Being hit where it hurts, Norman blushed and turned his head away, while scratching the back of his neck awkwardly. Seeing Norman's expression, Alicia thought, blushing again, what a liar. Then she started to speak seriously. "People have laughed at me. When Alicia had to take on the heavy responsibility of restoring the family, absolutely no one believed in her ability. The first time I took on the responsibility of reviving the Melfont family, even my cousins didn't believe I could do it." Alicia recounted the past with a casual tone to Norman. "Anyway, I didn't have time for their meaningless words, because for me, it was either do or die." Faced with the malicious words of the people in the family, Alicia chose to ignore them while trying to complete the task she was carrying. "I shrugged off the insults and did whatever I could." At this point, she asked Norman a question. "Tell me, do you think I should have listened to my cousins and let them pick over what was left of the Melfont family like those vicious vultures?" Of course, Norman wouldn't be able to accept this, of course not. Receiving a satisfactory answer, Alicia said implicitly about Norman's situation, "Exactly, we can't change what we want if we just sit still." Hearing her say this, a surprised look immediately appeared on Norman's face as if he realized something. She asked Norman directly, "Do you want your younger brother to live day after day hating you?" He lowered his head, avoiding Alicia's gaze, then spoke the answer from the bottom of his heart, "No." Taking advantage of the situation, Alicia continued to persuade him, "Then go meet him and apologize." Then, she also clenched her skirt, giving him another path if the result of the apology was a failure, and if that's still not enough for him, then you can start finding other ways to reconcile. Clench. She looked up and stared straight into his eyes, asking again, "Do you understand?" Norman's mood was better at this time. He gave a gentle smile and replied to Alicia, "I understand." Hearing the satisfactory answer, she also smiled gently at him, smile. But when she noticed Norman's eyes full of affection, Alicia felt goosebumps. She asked herself, why is he looking at me like that? Shivers, goosebumps. Just then, the two suddenly heard a noise outside. Alicia quickly turned around, hiding behind Norman. "Turn." He curiously stepped out and opened the door. Click, outside was Stan. She was carrying a tray of food, and when she saw the two of them together, a joyful look immediately appeared on her face. "I'm so glad you two are together." At this time, Alicia showed her face. She cleared her throat, then thanked Stan. That's right, thank you for the snack, ehem." Her eyes immediately lit up. "Heh." Stan stood close to Norman, whispering some indecent things to him. Revive your instincts and pounce on her. You're both young and full of energy, what's there to be shy about? Alicia could only shout helplessly, Stan. Then, she stepped forward, grabbing her shoulder tightly, grab. While turning around to talk to Norman, she gradually pushed Stan out of the door. Stan and I have something to discuss. Good night, Mr. Norman. In just a blink of an eye, the two of them rushed out of the room like a gust of wind, leaving Norman confused and not understanding anything. Rush. He blushed and smiled as he watched the two figures moving away. After going away from Norman's place, Alicia forced Stan against the wall, slamming her hands against the wall next to her. Slam. Stan knew what was going on but still asked with a teasing smile, what's wrong? Alicia quickly spoke, you have to stop what you're doing. But contrary to Alicia's thoughts, Stan only lowered her head and said to her, but think about it. She mentioned Philip, Alicia's fiance who only knew how to drink and chase women. She advised her to give up that unworthy name, that Philip has nothing good. He only needs your money. Do you really want to marry a despicable gigolo? He can't even attract attention. Then, when she remembered Norman, she softened her voice. Unlike that weasel, Mr. Norman comes from a family of high moral standing and his reputation is still intact because he was sealed in that cave for 10 years. Stan continued to persuade Alicia, implying that the two should really be a couple and not Philip. In fact, he is far superior in both appearance and character. I mean, that body. Don't you think Mr. Norman is more suitable for you, miss? She thought to herself, I don't know how to refute. How can I refute when everything she says is right? Although that was what she thought in her heart, Alicia still looked straight into her eyes. And said frankly, have you forgotten? The more useless my husband is, the better. She clenched her fist and made up her mind, and I won't change my mind, clench. Then, she repeated it again, I will definitely not let anyone have the ability to harm my grandson. A talented husband will be a threat to Alfred's future. I will not let anyone come between my grandson and his inheritance. Alicia continued, and constantly urging Mr. Norman is very rude. Hearing Alicia sacrifice her life's happiness to revitalize the family, Stan was teary-eyed. Miss Alicia. Meanwhile, she continued to talk about the relationship between her and Norman. He doesn't even care about love. Finally, Alicia, not paying attention to her sparkling admiring eyes, suggested to Stan, now, promise me that you won't try to match me with Mr. Norman. While she was speaking, she suddenly noticed that someone had appeared. Norman stood in front of her, the two of them standing facing each other without saying a word to each other. A look of embarrassment appeared on everyone's face. Alicia avoided Norman's gaze. Although she opened her mouth, she couldn't say a word. In the end, she could only curse silently in her heart, damn it. Then all three sat down to eat at a table. The surroundings were noisy and bustling, but the atmosphere here was extremely silent, bustling, noisy. Stan took the fork, eating awkwardly. Norman spoke first, breaking the strange atmosphere, may I ask? He mentioned Alicia's fiance in front of the two. What kind of person is Miss Alicia's fiance? Hearing this, both she and Stan were stunned. She calmly replied to Norman, I'm sure you've never heard of him, he's a small nobleman from the western region. Stan also whispered, the Mofolk family, or Morphu? She replied softly, Morfolk. Norman muttered the name of Alicia's fiance, Philip Morfolk. Alicia didn't know what to say. She could only cut the meat while speaking vaguely. You will also find someone suitable when you return to the family, cut. But Norman quickly objected to this answer, it won't be easy. Alicia immediately realized that there was a hidden secret inside this answer. Norman gave the two a sad smile, no one wants to marry someone like me. The plot reappeared in Alicia's head. Before his disappearance, Norman Diaz had been betrothed. Norman's fiancée was a beautiful and gentle princess, with Princess Calliope, a promising candidate for the throne. The engagement of the two was a beautiful marriage that people praised endlessly. A promising bachelor in lot hens and a promising heir had painted a beautiful picture. People called this the marriage of the century. But tragedy struck after Norman went missing. However, not long after Norman went missing, the princess with a broken heart took her own life. Those were the things that happened now, that's the official announcement. But different from this world, Alicia had read the novel and knew the real content was not like that, but according to what I read in Ophelia's Night, she had been instigated by a royal priest. The truth is that Calliope had been tempted and served a dark god, by a clergyman in the imperial city. That person was none other than Nyx, also the madman who ruined the Melfont family, Nyx. Seduced by manipulative words, Calliope completely listened to Nyx, ignoring hundreds of words of advice. She had suffered the corrupting influence of Nyx. Calliope had set up a curse ritual that the novel also didn't reveal the reason. And it was that ritual that made another person jealous. That was the ritual that stirred the seeds of jealousy. Iago began to develop envy and carried out his cruel actions, had been dormant in Iago's mind. In the end, Norman was the one who suffered the curse and was imprisoned by his own fiance. In the end, Norman was imprisoned by his own fiance's hands. Then, suddenly remembering the past, Alicia paused slightly. I didn't expect I would remember this. In the end, I was the one who told Mr. Norman why the ritual's influence killed the princess. Pause. She looked at Norman with confusion, then sincerely apologized to him. I'm really sorry, I should have remembered the late princess. But Norman was very calm. It's okay. Norman's words were calm, but the content inside the words was extremely unstable. Politics is still more important than that unpleasant incident, miss, after all. It's really ridiculous to propose to the princess's former fiancé. If I'm ostracized by the nobility, then that's probably the reason. Alicia lowered her head, not daring to look straight at him. The atmosphere began to return to the way it was before, awkward. But Norman spoke first, but honestly. He was very satisfied with his current situation. I don't understand why I feel so happy, knowing that I've become the most useless bachelor in the empire. Alicia heard him say this and asked, what? She immediately remembered the words she had said to Stan earlier that she needed a husband who was as useless as possible. She immediately fell into panic, then asked herself, wait, is he repeating my words? Then, Alicia looked up, looking at Norman's calm face. In the end, she blushed and turned her head away, clearing her throat, while reassuring herself, I'm probably overthinking it, ehem. Quick as lightning, Alicia returned to her original calm appearance. Mr. Norman is too humble. Once you return to your family, I'm sure there will be many young ladies willing to marry you. Hearing this, Norman's mood was a bit down, but that would be a family marriage with a woman I don't know at all. What happiness is there in living like that? Alicia also agreed with his words, but at the same time reminded, right, we all want a marriage for love, but that only exists in fairy tales, Mr. Norman. Most people are forced to compromise with reality. At this time, Norman immediately gave a bright smile, interrupting Alicia's long speech. So you also desire a marriage for love, radiant. He said to her in an excited voice like a child, your wish will come true, miss, trust me. And Alicia looked at him with an unimaginable attitude. Next, glancing at Stan sitting next to her, who was giving an obscene smile, oh ho, Alicia shuddered, starting to panic in her heart. Shiver, why is she looking at me like that? Just then, a hearty voice interrupted the conversation of the three people. There you are. A figure appeared in the room. Swoosh, I knew I would find you here. Hearing this voice, Alicia immediately recognized who the person was. She turned her head away, not wanting to look at the newcomer, while Norman looked at that person with a confused expression. Then witnessing that person's actions towards Alicia made Norman even more shocked. Gano stepped forward and hugged Alicia tightly, saying with a smile, my Alicia, embrace. He gave a triumphant smile. The hand placed on the table also tapped continuously, tap, tap. Gano rested his chin on Alicia's head, completely ignoring Norman's presence. Don't you miss me at all? She crossed her arms and said with an annoyed tone, why would I miss you? You came here to be a tracking dog, not a pet dog. Norman listened silently. He looked at Gano and wondered, tracking dog? He put his hands on the table, feeling a little hesitant to say something, hesitate. Gano casually replied to Alicia's sarcastic words, whether I'm tracking or not, a dog always wags its tail when it sees its master. Then he started to shake his hips, doing indecent things, like this, shake, wag. Alicia sitting next to him was speechless. Then admitted her words, but that's right. Gano spread his arms wide, making a request to her, you've been gone for so long, you owe me a hug. Norman opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Then he immediately stood up, stand up. But the thing that happened before his eyes made Norman very surprised. Alicia kicked Gano, then warned him, if you dare hug me again, I'll make you regret it. And Gano, after eating it, could only tremble and kneel on the floor, groaning in pain, tremble. Stan, fearing that the matter wasn't big enough, started to tease, oh my, what a nutcracker kick. Gano lay prostrate on the floor, asking with a confused voice, nutcracker? Then continued to act, growling, come on, this is the hardest nut in the world. Alicia sighed, then put her hands on her hips and asked him, if you knew I was safe, why didn't you wait in Romdak? Now the association has to pay for your trip again. What a waste of money, I can't understand it. Gano immediately sobered up and sat up, saying to her directly, I missed you too much. As soon as he finished speaking, both of them fell silent. Alicia warned him once again, enough nonsense, report and get lost, creepy. And Gano was speechless. Gano turned his face to signal to Alicia, turn. She suddenly remembered that Norman was standing next to her. Then Alicia pulled Gano's hand and spoke, excuse me, Mr. Norman. She turned her head and said to Norman, I need to discuss some issues of the association with my collaborator, if you excuse us. Then took Gano to discuss the affairs of the association, and Norman, left behind, stood there stunned and speechless. Enjoy your meal, thank you. Without beating around the bush, Alicia went straight to the point with Gano. So what do you want to meet me for? He also said directly, I accidentally met Ophelia. Mentioning Ophelia, she couldn't hide her emotion, quickly warning him, if you're kidding again, I'll strangle you. But Gano denied with a frivolous tone, how would I dare to lie? I'm the loyal slave of my lovely master. Then became serious in a blink of an eye, but that's right, I saw her near the entrance to Catham. At that time, Ophelia had asked him, Gano, the representative of the Romdak Association, right? And he, when he saw Ophelia, was stunned and couldn't believe his eyes. What are you doing here? She warned Gano, it's for Alicia, be quiet. In the end, Gano decided to be silent before her, and before she scolded me, I had no choice but to stop because she mentioned your name. He recounted what had happened before, she asked me to come with her and gave some directions. I found it very strange. Alicia asked with a questioning tone, strange? How strange? Gano repeated exactly what Ophelia had said, just do what I say, if you want Alicia to return to the estate safely. Gano turned his head, that's what she said. Then, I went to the flea market to see if she was telling the truth, and found a heretic chanting spells, just as she said. Alicia's hand on her side gradually tightened. He had dealt with the heretic right after, but hey, everything has been resolved, so there's no need to worry anymore. The person who had been silent all along, at this time, spoke, I need to meet her. Gano was surprised at her words, what? Alicia called him by his name, Gano. Alicia issued an order to him, bring Ophelia back here to me, that's the next order for you. While the two of them were discussing, Norman was sitting dejectedly in the dining room, dejectedly. Stan was also embarrassed when it was just her and him, she drank some water and cleared her throat, ehem. Norman spoke first, may I ask what Mr. Gano is to the miss? Stan saw his gloomy face and quickly waved her hand, it's not like that, I guarantee. Gano is just a representative of the association, nothing more, nothing less. A sad smile quickly appeared on his face, so they're collaborating, so they must be very close. Stan quickly tried to fix things, not really. Stan explained the relationship between Alicia and Gano to him, Gano is just a representative in the literal sense. According to the terms of the contract, he's more like a wage slave. She quickly advised him not to worry too much about him, don't worry about him, he's currently only responsible for exporting goods to the kingdom of Necta. Her being close to him is just to help her work less hard, and Miss Alicia is tolerant of him only because she wants someone to run those troublesome little errands. But even if she said that, Norman didn't quite believe it, for a slave, it seems that he's always willing to take advantage of his charm, huh? As he spoke, he remembered Gano's indecent appearance. Earlier, Alicia, wag, shake. Stan crossed her arms, racking her brains for a way to explain it to Norman, to be honest, the contract isn't what's keeping him here, he's staying here because of his feelings for the young Miss. Then, a dazzling light flashed in her eyes, but let me tell you, Gano isn't Miss Alicia's type, burst. She told him about his background, he's just a pirate using the fake identity of a noble son, it's just how he shows himself as a lowly person. Then summarized, speaking of men, Miss Alicia likes a refined and aesthetic work of art like you more. Hearing Stan praise him like that, he gave a gentle smile, refined and aesthetic. At this time, he called her, Mrs. Stan. Then asked for advice from Stan, I have a very important appointment tonight, can I ask you for some advice? At the same time, something happened on Alicia's side, Gano bowed his head looking at the ground, there you are, now that you're here, don't be angry with me anymore. Underneath the ground was a mess as if a bloody battle had taken place, what would happen if I went as slow as a turtle like your guards? Alicia didn't care what had just happened, just asked, Ophelia, how is she? Gano also answered truthfully, I don't know either, that's the first time I met that girl. She looks very different in the wanted poster. Gano recounted Ophelia's state at that time, she looked very tired. Alicia didn't look at him but looked in another direction, feeling heartache for Ophelia's situation, I can imagine, life must be more difficult for a fugitive. She ordered him to continue his mission, my guards will be here today, I'll be safe with them around, you just focus on your next mission. Gano asked her again, so if I catch her, will you lock her in prison? Alicia quickly retorted, no. She crossed her arms, giving a haughty appearance ordering Gano, bring her to me. Alicia clenched her arms tightly, after all, she still owes me a lot of answers. 100 worries appeared in her heart, first of all, how could she know that one of Nyx's henchmen would appear in this town to attack me? This mysterious thing didn't even appear in the novel, that's something that even the book doesn't reveal. The contents of the novel ran in Alicia's head, but it didn't mention this at all, no chapter in Ophelia's Night begins with, what if Alicia Melfont survived? Her still being alive until now. It wasn't in the book's calculations at all, the book didn't even consider that possibility. The demonic shadow was always lurking around her, rushing towards her. She could only rely on herself to save herself, meaning there's no way to predict the future. My fate has changed now. There was no way at all, there's no way at all. Alicia could only rely on her own strength. But Ophelia's behavior made her very confused. Then how could Ophelia have foreseen the danger waiting for me? Alicia was immersed in a series of her own thoughts, thinking about it. It's strange that she went out of her way to meet Gano. I met Gano after establishing Ramdak. So she couldn't possibly know him. At this time, she came up with an unbelievable hypothesis. Her whole body trembled along with that train of thought. Could it be that she knows about the existence of the novel, Tremble? The more she thought, the whiter Alicia's face became, and her breathing became heavier. Hawk, if she realizes that the only way to regain her divine power is to kill me, she will. Gano quickly called her, Alicia. At the same time, Alicia started to feel dizzy. He hugged her. Are you alright? Alicia was a little more conscious, saying and panting at the same time, don't worry, I won't let anyone or anything kill me, Hawk. He heard her say that and gritted his teeth. Of course, you're Alicia Melfont, grit. Then started to act old, but who would want to meet the master of a hot slave who always obeys obediently? Alicia looked at him and gave a helpless smile, chuckle. At this time, a call came from afar, Miss Alicia. She looked at the people coming and said, you're late. The scout spoke, excuse us, miss, we've checked a few things related to your kidnapping. She asked them again with a confused tone, what are you talking about? The scout replied, according to our sources, you were kidnapped by Nyx, the heretic who was imprisoned at the scene. Alicia raised her hand to interrupt him, wanting to hear something important. I understand, get to the point, raise. He continued, now. The scout told Alicia about Nyx's situation. He's the heretic who was sealed in the deep water inside the cathedral. At this time, the water in the cathedral's water shook, whoosh. As the scout said, inside that water was Nyx, the one who was sleeping soundly, never to see the light forever. Alicia's eyes were firm as she said, he must be the heretic who's now sealed in the deep water inside the cathedral, never to see the light of day. Gano frowned, looking seriously and admiringly, good. Alicia was a little worried, her eyes drooped as she thought, if Nyx has really been sealed. Then there was no reason for her to rush back to the estate. I'll take advantage of the time to prevent further. Gano at this time went to the scout and asked. Exactly where has Nyx been hiding all this time? He scratched his head, his face indescribable replying, I'm not sure either, the name sounds quite strange, it seems to be, After hesitating for a moment, the scout suddenly blurted out, Tantaros. Alicia asked in confusion, Tantaros? He nodded in affirmation, that's right. Gano standing next to her asked very curiously, why do you know that name? Alicia squinted her eyes, replying with a very tired face, that's where they imprisoned me. Gano heard it and shouted in panic, what? That madman. Alicia didn't say much, she asked sternly, who found Nyx and Tantaros? The scout replied frankly, it was Mr. Nicholas, the leader of the knights. Hearing this, the emotions in Alicia mixed, she pursed her lips and thought, meaning, it's Ophelia. Nicholas was just a collaborator helping her avoid being arrested. Then, a thought arose in Alicia's heart that was hard to believe. However, how could Ophelia find Tantaros in the first place? Switching scenes to the evening at the Melfont estate, Gano shuddered saying, let me escort you back to the estate, Alicia, I want to make sure you're safe. Alicia was a little unhappy, she showed her attitude clearly and replied sternly, you heard what the scout said, Nyx has been sealed, there's no need to worry anymore. It's time for you to go back to your mission according to the contract. Hearing this, he scratched his head and blurted out, you and that damn contract, really? Then Gano turned and left, saying in a resentful voice, okay, if that's what you want, I'll do it. Hearing that, Alicia's eyes drooped, her face seemed to contain many secret things. She gently stepped forward with a heavy sigh. In the novel, Ophelia could only find Tantaros. A terrifying scene appeared in her head. Thanks to the letter that Nyx sent with my sister's severed arm, no. All because of the violent influence of my death at the time Ophelia came to Tantaros. According to the novel, Ophelia went to Nyx's fortress herself to save me. If I wasn't there, she would have no reason to know about the existence of Tantaros. Thinking of that, Alicia was a little sad thinking, but it turns out that she still went there despite everything. She looked up at the sky and asked, what can you see, Ophelia? The wind whistled through, and Alicia was still immersed in the emotions and secretly asked, did you know that my death is the only way for you to regain your power? The door of the room at this time quietly closed. The curtain kept fluttering in the wind, in the room only Alicia stood alone, desolate. Suddenly she gently glanced down below. Alicia stared thoughtfully at the Teresa flower on the table. At this time, a Teresa petal fell, causing her to look at it in a daze. Alicia's eyes suddenly changed, her pupils widened. In an instant, Ophelia's figure appeared with a warm voice, you always suit Teresa flowers, it's as if this flower was born for you. When she heard the faint voice, her heart suddenly beat thumping. Alicia stepped back, her heart still beating, thumping. She shouted with some fear, "Show yourself." She staggered, taking each step back. As soon as that figure appeared, Alicia was startled to blurt out, "Ophelia." She gave a kind smile, replying, "It's been a long time, Alicia." Alicia witnessed that scene and was a little scared to turn pale. Her whole body suddenly trembled slightly. At that moment, the sound of the wind whistling came from outside the window. It increased her fear. In the dim night, Nyx's evil figure appeared. He attacked Ophelia directly without thinking. At the moment Nyx's blade cut through Alicia's flesh, the holy water that had helped her live for 10 years had returned to its owner, soaking Ophelia with an even greater power in the body, mind, and soul. Thinking of this, Alicia staggered. She hugged her face in pain, then crouched down. Ophelia panicked and ran to her, then kindly asked, "Are you all right?" But Alicia refused coldly, "Don't come any closer." Hearing that, Ophelia stopped, stunned, calling, "Alicia." Suddenly, Alicia pulled something out from her skirt. She rushed over and swiped it across Ophelia's face, causing her to be stunned. In her hand she held a sharp sword, the blade so sharp that it gleamed. Alicia, with a full face of frowns, said that, "Take another step." Ophelia was stunned. She still continued to threaten, "Then I'll kill you." She watched Alicia coldly, terrifyingly like that. She still frowned and clenched the knife resolutely, but Norman's voice still echoed in her ears, "I'll try to be by your side as much as possible." Thinking back before that, he had stuffed this sword into her and said softly, "But just in case," swoosh. She looked at that sword a little confused, but Norman still kindly instructed, "Always keep this with you." He gave a bright smile, then continued, I don't think you'll need to pull it out." Now, her hand was clenching the sword. Alicia trembled, thinking, "Unfortunately, Mr. Norman, this will prove that you were wrong." Later, she remembered the past, that day. Ophelia left us to die there without saying a word. She was the one who ended this friendship, not me. Thinking back to that made Alicia grit her teeth and think, and according to what was written in that book, as long as Ophelia is alive, I will have to face death. She glared and sternly asked Ophelia, "How did you know I was here to find?" She paused, then quickly explained, "Alicia, you're not yourself anymore, calm down and..." She angrily shouted, "Shut up." Alicia slowly stepped forward, then angrily replied, "Don't pretend to care anymore." She glared straight at her and shouted, "It makes me feel disgusting." Ophelia fearfully trembled, replying, "You know that I would never hurt you." Alicia angrily moved forward day by day, asking, "Why did you come here? What do you want from me? Step back." She retreated and trembled, saying, "I just want to keep you safe from danger." Thump. Alicia gritted her teeth and shouted, "I don't believe it." She angrily shouted straight in Ophelia's face that, at the moment Nyx's blade cut through Alicia's flesh, the holy water that helped her survive had returned to its owner. "It was because of you." Because she was too excited, she suddenly pulled Ophelia's arm hard. Alicia pressed her down, then glared and shouted, "That I was in danger from the start." Her eyes glared angrily straight towards her. Suddenly Alicia seemed to realize something, very surprised. Before her was a weak Ophelia. She was tired and didn't even bother to resist. Even though I tried to move forward, the book continued to haunt my mind with the scenes in each page. Last night was no exception. In the dream, one of Nyx's henchmen jumped out from the darkness and suddenly attacked Ophelia, rushing towards. In her memory, when she was attacked, Ophelia was terrified and scared. Even though she had practiced swordsmanship after losing her divine power, Ophelia couldn't avoid the ambush and lost an arm in the attack. According to what I know, the right arm had been reattached to her shoulder, but there was no healing magic around to help it recover completely. I wonder why that damn novel told me the truth. That all the tragedies that we had suffered. Seeing Ophelia like that, Alicia also felt sympathetic. She softly asked cautiously, "Your hand, was all predetermined?" Alicia asked frankly, "Is it still injured, isn't it?" She was stunned and asked back, "You know?" Ophelia cried loudly, saying, "No, you mustn't know anything." Alicia turned around, then pensively said that, "The secret is so big. That makes your great divine power the only source of my life?" She cried in anger and bitterness, asking, "Or do you mean I should have died a long time ago?" Ophelia, stunned, replied, "Alicia, that," she bitterly asked, continuing, "Or perhaps you wish I had never known." Ophelia cried, all her tears, hearing her continue, "My death is the only source of life you have." She slowly sat up, replying, "I won't let you die, I promise." Hearing this, Alicia sadly replied, "So you admit it, my fate has been sealed." She clenched the sword and thought, I wish I had never read Ophelia's Night. For Ophelia's story to exist, my story must be erased. Because of her halo. Surely my life for the past 10 years has been written as a despair. Alicia exhausted all her strength but still couldn't bear it. She weakly replied, "So you also know that I can't kill you." Later, her eyes became emotionless and said, continuing, "If you die, I won't be able to protect my life either." Hearing this, Ophelia's tears couldn't be stopped and flowed down. Later, Ophelia sobbed and said, "I'm sorry, Alicia. Alicia didn't weaken, she frankly said that, but I haven't given up yet. She gently lifted Ophelia's chin and said, stop with the crocodile tears, you didn't come here to do that. If Ophelia believes that our fate can be changed, then it means the book has no effect. She lifted Ophelia's chin then frowned seriously asking, now I'm going to ask you a few questions. You better not hide anything. I'll make that damn novel backfire, she still seriously said continuing that, is there a way for me? Alicia angrily shouted, to control your divine power and survive to the end. She lost control and got closer to Ophelia then loudly asked, is there a way for me to control your divine power? She blankly asked back, divine power? Alicia nodded assertively, yes, extraordinary power, your pride. She calmly said continuing that, I activated it in Tantaros. And now I'm trying to find a way to repeat it. Ophelia stunned for a moment asking, so you activated it? She looked at the current nuances of her face then curiously thought, what's that expression for? Suddenly Alicia angrily shouted, yes, thanks to your power that I'm sitting here today. And I want to use it to ensure a fulfilling life for myself, so hurry up and say it. Ophelia hearing it then smiled faintly and gently blurted out, ah. She looked at Alicia lovingly and continued, the key is to call out my name loudly, with all your heart. She hearing it then blushed and stunned replied, what did you say? Ophelia seeing it then worriedly asked, your face is turning red, are you alright? I remember you always had a fever. She snatched her hand away and said, don't bother and answer the question. Ophelia clenched her hands then worriedly said, for you with my divine power is also very risky. Next she worriedly recounted, giving my power to you had led Nyx to. And above all, I have to consider the time you need. To really learn how to use it. That's why I put a special charm on you. The charm hides your divine power. And is only activated when you call out my name loudly. After saying it then Ophelia and she could only look at each other, the space was also strangely silent. Then her cheeks flushed red, Alicia stunned thought, wait, so she knows that I called out her name for help? And also very desperately. She clenched her hands and said, that won't happen again. Ophelia next to her hearing it then also softly replied, I hope so too, after all, activating that power means you're in danger. Alicia hearing it then lost control and shouted, no matter what, you still know that Nyx and his subordinates have sacrificed countless lives in Tantaros. Why didn't you try to save them? She softly and timidly replied, I couldn't lose another opportunity for you. Ophelia turned her back then timidly said continuing, there was no choice, I had to wait until you started to act. She hearing it then angrily shouted, you're being unreasonable. Ophelia burst out crying, I saw you die in Tantaros. Hearing that, she frowned and wondered, did she hit her head or something? Then Ophelia became calmer and recounted, I still remember it clearly. I had to live for 2 years without you, that really happened. She stunned replied, 2 years? The time recounted in Ophelia's night, ended after exactly 18 months since my death. Alicia at this time remembered a little, she started to piece it together, Ophelia had taken 1 year to kill Nyx, and punish the remaining henchmen. 6 months later, she married Nicholas. She glared at Ophelia and asked, the last chapter in Ophelia's night, only tells about 18 months after I died. But you said it was 2 years, is there another chapter of the story that I haven't read? She blankly asked back, whose night? I don't quite understand. Seeing her ask so puzzled Alicia puzzled herself, she really doesn't know? Later she frankly asked, you were engaged to Nicholas, weren't you? You were destined to marry him. Why did you marry Nicholas? She slumped to the ground then thoughtfully thought, I thought I was the only crazy one to believe in a novel that predicted the future. But now there's also someone saying they've seen that happen. Ophelia's face became emotionless, a small voice rang out, tell me, Alicia. Did Mara also visit you? Hearing this, she was a little stunned asking back, Mara, the goddess? Alicia felt a little sad and thought, our sources are different, but she must have realized something. Ophelia looked at her then painfully said, please, if you know anything related to this, please tell me, what is that novel you just mentioned? Alicia stared at her hand then told herself. However, the future she experienced is a direct result of my death. She saw Ophelia crying and shouting that, I saw you die in Tantaros. That future is no longer relevant because I'm still alive, meaning Ophelia's secret is also useless, stand up. She glanced over at Ophelia then snapped, you can get out now. At the right time a knock came from outside the door, the person outside then called out, you have mail, miss. Alicia hearing it then replied, wait outside. Then she turned back to look at Ophelia and said, I've heard enough, Ophelia. She directly pointed to the window and said, I put up with you enough. So please get out. She cried and blurted out, Alicia. She frankly recounted, have you forgotten? You're not my family anymore. On the day you chose to abandon me and Alfred, there was nothing left between us. Alicia slammed her hand hard against the wall, then shouted, "I'm no longer that weak kid, who needs to be protected and always needs your care." Then she angrily scolded, "Get out of lot, hens, I never want to see you again." Outside, the servant's voice rang out, "Is everything alright, miss? What's wrong?" "I don't know, I heard noise inside, I have to break down the door and check." At this time Ophelia rushed over and pushed hard on her shoulder. Alicia, stunned, shouted, "What do you think you're doing?" Ophelia whispered into her ear, "Remember this." She held her hand tightly and earnestly advised, "There will always be someone out there willing to do anything just to make you happy." Just as the guards pushed the door open and entered quickly, they shouted loudly, "Miss Alicia." They looked at her worriedly and asked, "Are you hurt, miss?" But she only stared intently at her palm. Alicia was stunned to see the small piece of paper in her hand, wondering silently, "What is this?" The guards entered, glancing around and saying fiercely, "We heard a noise inside." Alicia quietly turned around, and the guards asked anxiously, "Are you all right, miss?" She just lazily glanced at them and replied, "A thief tried to break in through the window, but ran away when he saw me." They exclaimed in panic, "A thief? We will send more guards." She shrugged indifferently, replying, "No need, I don't think he will come back." "And you just mentioned a letter, right?" They immediately took the letter and handed it to her, replying gently, "Yes, dear miss, from Lord Nicholas Diaz." Alicia took the letter and opened it. Suddenly her face became unusually serious. After a moment, she looked at the guards and ordered listlessly, "You can go, I don't want to be disturbed." Hearing this, they had to comply. "Have a good evening, miss." Closing. Alicia went over and gently sat on the bed, her thoughts weary. She sighed softly. She read the letter with an unhappy expression. "The fallen priest Nyx has been sealed within the sanctuary." Alicia threw it away decisively and exclaimed, "Nothing new." She suddenly clenched her fist and pondered for a moment with conviction. Then the scene from before flashed through her mind. Ophelia's figure and voice still echoed in her ears, "Remember this. There will always be someone out there willing to do anything just to make you happy." She held the piece of paper tightly in her hand and called softly, "Ophelia." Alicia looked out the window and wondered to herself, how the hell did you predict the future? Outside, Norman brought a basket of Teresa flowers. Inside was a cat named Antoinette. He exclaimed in astonishment, "A cat?" He watched it meow a few times and blurted out unconsciously, "This flower basket is a gift for Miss Alicia." Norman gently reached out and stroked Antoinette's head. He petted it and said softly, "It should be fine, you remind me of her." Just then someone came and called out, "Lord Diaz." He turned around to see who it was. It was Madame Stan, who ran over and said, "I've been looking for you everywhere." Stan looked at him and said gently, "We haven't finished trying on clothes yet." Norman gave a wry smile and replied, "I think this is enough for one day." Then he thought to himself, "I just want to learn more about Miss Alicia's preferences." Hearing his intention, Stan immediately disagreed, "No, I know you have a charming appearance, but clothes are also very important." Just then Antoinette meowed a few times. Seeing its appearance, she exclaimed excitedly, "Oh my, this cat is so cute." Stan looked at it with fascination and asked, "Where did you find this adorable fluffball?" Norman petted it and asked, "Doesn't it remind you of Miss Alicia?" She nodded in agreement and leaned over, exclaiming, "It really does, it will immediately win her heart." Stan kept praising Antoinette's appearance, saying, "I didn't expect you to love animals. Is this cat a gift for the dear miss?" Norman looked at it and said softly, "Miss Alicia and I will raise it together." Suddenly a flock of birds appeared in the sky, along with someone's voice, "The fireworks are about to start." Norman quickly prepared and said excitedly, "I should go pick her up." He stroked Antoinette and asked, "Are you excited, kitten?" Hearing this, Stan blushed. She exclaimed in astonishment, "Together, wonderful." At this moment, some footsteps appeared on the road. He held Antoinette in his arms and took it to somewhere. The surroundings were quite noisy and lively, with many people coming and going. Stan also followed Norman. She went to the guards and said, "Why are carriages still coming here so late?" They only looked at her and exclaimed, "Madam Stan." Then the guards quickly whispered something in Stan's ear. Just then someone exclaimed in admiration, "Lord Norman Diaz." He calmly asked, "Miss Alicia sent you, right?" Nod. The guard nodded and replied, "Yes, we are here under the orders of the dear miss," bowing. He bowed his head and said respectfully, "She ordered us to escort you to the family's mansion." Scene changed to 2 days later, Melfont Manor. Alicia arrived with a pure appearance, and the person next to her exclaimed in admiration, "It's good to see you return, dear miss, we have always been waiting for you to come back." She also smiled calmly and replied gently, "It's been a long time, hasn't it?" She looked towards Erica and exclaimed loudly, "Erica." Alicia slowly sat down and asked, "Is everything all right?" She nodded in reply, "Yes." Suddenly she glanced at the pile of papers next to her. Alicia saw what papers they were and said, "Weren't you the manager while I was away?" Erica nodded, "Indeed, but some important issues piled up during your absence." The most urgent issues have been resolved, these are the remaining ones that need the guildmaster's review, seriously. Hearing this, Alicia only glanced at them and smiled kindly. She took out the small piece of paper and showed it to Erica. She took the piece of paper and read it, then exclaimed in surprise, her face showing an indescribable expression. Erica couldn't help but exclaim, is this information? The answer lies in the faith of Sister Calliope, meet Petra and Kruger this week. Alicia nodded in agreement, that's right. Then she frowned with a question, but why, this week? Putting the pieces together, Alicia secretly believed that there was no doubt about having to act on the future that Ophelia saw. Erica heard and left, not forgetting to say as she left, I will arrange appointments with Petra and Kruger whenever you want. Erica looked at Alicia with concern and thought to herself, she is too silent. She pondered for a moment and then asked, what about Lord Dias? She immediately reported the situation, everything has been arranged as you instructed. Alicia replied listlessly, I know, he must be arriving soon. Then Erica saw this and called out, Miss. She trembled, her hand clenched slightly, just I don't know. Alicia looked up and asked frankly, will he be able to return safely to his family? Meanwhile, a carriage was clattering along the road. Norman sat inside, staring out the window and thinking to himself, why do I feel so strange? His hand gently stroked Antoinette and thought deeply, it's just that she treated me well, nothing more, nothing less. A moment later, the guards took him to Melfont Manor, and he said kindly, Miss Alicia ordered us to escort you back to your family's mansion. Stan said with embarrassment, I am really very sorry, Lord Norman, I should have left you two alone together. Miss Alicia sent a letter to you, she wrote this letter before returning to Melfont Manor. The content of the letter was roughly, Lord Norman, I ask you to forgive me, it seems that in the end I still couldn't keep my promise to you, I hope that I have expressed my gratitude more sincerely. Alicia instructed her servants, tell Stan that I apologize for leaving without saying goodbye, but now, please allow me to thank you with these brief words. I hope that I can send you the most sincere feelings. She also snapped and said, Lord Norman is a respectable guest of the guild, because he is my bodyguard. He saved my life. She earnestly instructed the guards, please make sure he is comfortable until he arrives at his family's mansion, I could not have survived and returned, if it weren't for his help. Although this can't possibly repay the favor, step. Please allow me to take you safely back to your family, clop, clop, that's the only thing I can do. I hope that every day of yours will always be filled with joy and laughter, Alicia, Miss Melfont. Norman read it in silence, as if falling into deep thought. His heart pounded and he wondered, is this, disappointment? Probably in the moment we shared together for a short time. The moments that happened. Thanks to the clause of the contract we signed. Without them, she and I would only be strangers. After going a distance, the car suddenly stopped. Norman got out of the car in a start, the guard next to him said, we have arrived at Dias Mansion, Lord Norman. Seeing the surrounding scenery, his hand trembled and clenched, 10 years. He put his hand on his chest and felt, everything must have changed, except for me, gasp, gasp. Would they want me to come back? Norman wondered in his mind, what will Miss Alicia do? Suddenly his eyes lit up, as if he had just seen something. Norman suddenly realized, we can't change what we want if we just sit still. Alicia's figure and voice echoed, go see your brother and apologize. Hearing this, his face froze, perhaps I am just a stranger to her, Miss Alicia. His hand reached to unlock the door, his mind still thinking, but to me, she is more than that. Just then, Nicholas appeared, and everyone happily welcomed Norman, Lord. Welcome home. Nicholas went over excitedly and happily said, welcome home, brother. He also smiled kindly and replied, I'm back. Norman and Nicholas stood looking at each other in silence. He stood blankly for a moment and asked softly, is that you, Nicholas? Norman exclaimed in astonishment, look at you, you've grown so much. Then Nicholas suddenly rushed over, he opened his arms and hugged him tightly. Norman looked in panic and exclaimed, Nicholas. Nicholas sobbed like a child and asked, tell me this is real. Norman patted him and said, yes, it's me, little brother. But Nicholas's tears continued to fall, he exploded with emotion and cried out, Norman. Nicholas looked up and sobbed, I missed you so much. Hearing this, Norman put his hand on him with pity, there, if this goes on, I'm going to cry too. Seeing him sobbing like a child, the people standing there whispered, Lord Nicholas is crying? Pay attention, people are often easily sentimental when they are close to death. Just then Morton appeared and ordered sternly, shut up. Norman gave Nicholas a look of deep affection, his eyes filled with love. Scene changed to a large, luxurious mansion. Inside the room, someone was scribbling handwritten letters, starting with the familiar sentence, Dear Miss Alicia. It's been a week since I reunited with my family, and I will be forever grateful to you for this. Everything is happening as you said, it's a warm welcome, and no one said a rude word. But that's enough for me, what about you, dear miss? I imagine you must be very busy with the tasks that have piled up while you were away, Alicia said with a serious expression. I hoped that everything would be fine when I returned home. But there were some harmful things secretly destroying my work. She looked at the woman walking by and continued, that's the woman I told you about. She's a midwife specializing in abortions, which is of course illegal. Even if I want to deny it as much as possible, Ophelia is still useful. She gave us all the pieces of this puzzle. Erica heard and exclaimed, that's right, miss. The woman who just walked past is named Kruger, Alicia quickly called out, Madam Kruger. She heard this and looked back blankly, wondering, you are, anyway, I'm not worried. Because the miss of the Melfont family is someone who can accomplish anything. Next to her, Antoinette rustled, and Norman continued to write his heartfelt letter, I am looking forward to the day we meet again. Seeing this scene, he suddenly stopped, his eyes stunned and wondering, why are these feathers suddenly falling out? Immediately after, Norman sneezed loudly. After sneezing, Norman suddenly realized that this letter wasn't even sent. Just then, Nicholas stepped forward from behind and said, you sneezed again. He looked at Antoinette and wondered, should we let this little leopard out? After saying that, he glanced at Antoinette and was silent. Seeing its pouty face, Nicholas thought that it reminded him of someone. Norman looked up and said, little leopard. Nicholas glanced over in surprise and asked, don't you recognize it? Then he started to describe it, strong feet. Claws as sharp as knives. It's definitely a leopard. Norman looked at Antoinette and exclaimed listlessly, it looks no different from a cat, I want to keep it by my side for the time being. Then Norman coaxed sweetly, don't worry, Antoinette, I won't let him put you outside. Nicholas stood aside in astonishment and said, you named it Antoinette? Cerberus or Medusa would be more fitting. After saying that, Nicholas paused and continued, anyway, I came here to tell you that I have been summoned to Bardeth. I really don't want to leave you alone because you just came back. Hearing this, Norman didn't say anything, he just stared at him. Later, Norman smiled proudly, my little brother is now serving the goddess, I'm so proud, Nicholas. Nicholas suddenly asked, are you planning to return to the Order, Norman? He sighed and replied calmly, it's useless, the Order of Knights already has a leader, a very excellent one at that. Hearing that, Nicholas clenched his fist and said, there must be something you can do, I will find a position for you. Norman still held Antoinette in his arms and replied frankly, prioritize your mission, remember that Nyx must always be sealed, otherwise everyone will be affected. That's the mission of a knight leader. Hearing this, Nicholas gritted his teeth, became angry and said, every time I think about how that bastard tortured you, Norman also sadly thought, he just locked me up in a prison where time stands still, I'm probably quite lucky. But you can't say that to other people. Many people died in prison, sacrificed in blasphemous rituals. No matter what, Nyx must be held responsible for his crimes. Talking about that, Norman sadly thought, thinking about it. I am not the only one who was saved by Miss Alicia. Countless people owe her their lives, if she hadn't intervened, Nyx would have slaughtered everyone. He looked down at the ground and muttered, to her, I'm just one of them. Nicholas heard this and asked absent-mindedly, her, do you mean Alicia Melfont? He looked with a questioning look and continued, a letter bearing the Melfont seal was just sent. Alicia said she didn't have the opportunity to thank you properly, so those people are on their way to our mansion to express their gratitude. Hearing that, Norman suddenly jumped up in an extremely unexpected manner. His cheeks flushed and he called softly, Miss Alicia, is she coming here? He was stunned, holding Antoinette tightly and turning to Nicholas and asking, is Miss Alicia coming here? As soon as he finished speaking, his face froze, standing there red in the face. Seeing this, Nicholas put his hand on his hip and asked, why are you so surprised, is there a problem? Norman replied shyly, I owe her a lot. Nicholas continued, she is the master of the Rondak Guild, everyone wants her to show her face. After saying that, he observed him and asked with concern, Norman, are you sure you're alright, seasonal allergies? Norman waved his hand and replied, I'm fine, just a little itchy nose. Seeing the awkward situation, Nicholas stroked his chin thoughtfully. Then he concluded with a fatal sentence, you're a little different from what I remember. Hearing this, Norman was disappointed and asked timidly, are you disappointed? But I still look the same. Nicholas patted him on the shoulder lovingly and replied, that's not what I meant, actually I really like you like this, it feels like I'm getting to know the real you. Hearing that, his eyes were filled with love, emotion, and hope. Just then there was a knock on the door, it's time, sir, Nicholas replied frankly, okay. Then Nicholas stood up and walked out step by step. He frankly made a request, I'm leaving Ophelia to you, Jack, he nodded in acceptance. Norman stood with his arms crossed, smiling happily. He happily reminded, take care, Nicholas, we'll talk longer when you get back. Nicholas nodded and smiled. Scene changed to outside, the flag was flying high in the wind. Each carriage was rolling clop-clop on the road. Norman put his hand on the window and looked out, sadly exclaiming, they're here. Miss Alicia must be in one of those carriages. Suddenly there was a rustling sound behind him. A young man suddenly appeared and said, "Please allow me to meet you, sir." He confidently introduced himself loudly, "My name is Finn Vines, and from today I will be your bodyguard." Hearing this, Norman pondered the relationship and exclaimed, "Ah, the Vines brothers, the eldest, Morton, friends, the second, Jack, the youngest, Finn." Norman reached out his hand and said gently, "I will pay attention to you, Finn." This made Finn exclaim blankly, "Huh." He replied a little stunned, "Thank you, sir, it's a great honor." Norman and Finn exchanged a warm handshake for their first meeting. He also took the opportunity to remind a few things, but next time, remember to knock before entering. Finn immediately reacted, he quickly bowed his head and replied, "I'm sorry, I won't do it again." Norman continued to ask gently, "How is my friend Morton? I heard that your brother Jack has been serving the night for quite some time." Finn frankly replied in full, "Morton is responsible for protecting the entire mansion, and Jack is Lord Nicholas's bodyguard." Hearing this, his eyes drooped. It was a bit sad to think that just mentioning the names of his brothers made him panic. It's not surprising, Morton was very strict back then. Suddenly Norman asked a somewhat unrelated question, "Are you fast, Finn?" He hesitated for a moment, Faced with this question, Finn was a little worried, wondering, how can I tell him that I am the slowest runner in the family? He will be very disappointed, dejected. Then he patted his chest confidently and replied, "I'm better with a sword than running, sir. I am ready to serve you with the sword." At this moment, the window opened slightly. He walked to the window and looked at Finn, saying gently, "I have to test you, right?" Seeing this, he couldn't help but be surprised. Finn exclaimed in surprise, "Huh." Seeing Norman jump down from the window, Finn quickly rushed over and shouted, "Wait." He walked to the window in astonishment and exclaimed, "I didn't think my first day of work would be like this." Seeing Norman falling like that, Finn said in panic, "What should I do?" Norman was affected by the Earth's gravity and continued to fall. He also muttered, "Sometimes Miss Alicia seems a bit cold, but in the end she is always right. Thanks to her guidance, I was able to get back on the right track." Luckily and strangely, he landed safely. Norman stood panting and thought, "She shouldn't be grateful to me. On the contrary, I am the one who should be grateful to her." At this time, Finn was like a rocket in the ass. He darted like a machine to where he was. Finn panted and cried, "Lord Nicholas gave me the task of protecting you. You must let me protect you." Norman left like that. As he left he said, "She's not here." Finn stood there panting and wondering, what? He smiled and looked ahead and replied, "The guild master." Finn was tired and wondered aloud, "Why is she here? Aren't they only authorized to bring gifts to us?" Norman hugged his face sadly and replied, "You're right, she has no reason to come here. Nicholas must be kidding me, but I was really looking forward to it. Now I know for sure, what I feel has nothing to do with gratitude," Finn said in astonishment, "Sir." He walked over and pondered softly, "I just want to see Alicia again, please repeat that, I don't quite understand." Norman gently put his hand on his chest and thought to himself, "I." His heart pounded a few times, and the thoughts from the bottom of his heart revealed, "I have fallen in love with Miss Alicia." On this side, Erica stood in the mansion and said softly, "This is a bit too generous, dear miss. Lord Norman escorted you all the way to Catham, but that's only natural because you helped him in the first place." Alicia heard this and asked casually, "Are you talking about me pulling him out of that water?" You're right on point." She glanced to the side and continued, "After all, Ophelia's power would never be activated if I didn't want it to. Yes, that's what really helped me escape from Tantaros. But at that time I was too exhausted. If it weren't for his help, I probably wouldn't have set foot in Catham." Erica heard this and said hesitantly, "Miss, the problem is not who did it, but that." She nodded in agreement. "Yes, I'm not as stingy as usual today," Erica said cautiously, "if there is something that you haven't told me." Alicia heard this and was silent without saying anything more. Later, she frankly questioned, "You are trying to suppress the rumors between me and Lord Norman, right? But those rumors, Erica, no matter what, they will still find a way to spread them. Too fast to control. I know you are worried about me, but my skin is so thick that I can't be scared by those unfounded rumors anymore." Alicia stopped writing, she clenched the pen and continued, "On the contrary, what bothers me? It's the rumor about the murderous bastard Nyx and Miss Alicia Melfont. Made a secret agreement at Tantaros." Erica heard this and immediately denied it. "Even if someone started it, it's just a meaningless rumor. Now everyone knows that the suspected demon-worshipping Alicia Melfont really escaped from Tantaros in the arms of Lord Norman Dias, a brave knight, and has repaid by sending fleets of carriages to his mansion, to express her deep gratitude." Erica bit her nails and thought for a while, then continued, "That will stop the rumors immediately." Alicia sitting opposite her also nodded in praise, "Exactly, and Alicia Melfont has never lost a bet." After speaking, she glanced lightly to the side. Next to her was a pot of bright purple Teresa flowers. Suddenly, the image of Norman holding Teresa flowers and weaving a wreath popped into Alicia's head. Thinking of that scene made her cheeks flush. She unconsciously turned her face away and thought to herself, don't be so sentimental. But Alicia's heart still beat fast and she thought, I'm just doing the best way to protect my reputation. Scene changed to Norman. He stood outside with the wind whistling. His eyes were directed towards the sky, as if containing many things he couldn't say. Suddenly he turned around and said softly, I want to be alone. Finn seriously refused, I'm sorry, sir, but I must follow orders, protect you safely from all dangers. He gently put his hand on the wall and asked, why, is Iago still lurking around here? Norman smiled softly and shook his head, no, so you don't have to worry anymore, I really need some time for myself tonight, and if you have respect, you will respect my wishes. Seeing his expression, Finn suddenly froze, standing still for a few seconds. His hand trembled and clenched. He turned around decisively and said, I will return to the barracks for the night shift training, and certainly not because you asked me to do so. Seeing this, Norman smiled with satisfaction, very good. Then he stood there in the lonely darkness. While quietly suppressing his emotions, Norman seemed to hear a strange noise. He looked around and a series of doubts arose in his mind, Norman slowly walked down the stairs step by step. He quietly walked through the dark staircase alone. When he reached the bottom, he was a little stunned, surprised, and gaping. Before his eyes was a brilliant garden of Teresa flowers, the petals flying gracefully in the wind. Recalling Alicia's words earlier when looking at the fluttering petals, that's my favorite flower. He went over and plucked one lightly, thinking to himself, Miss Alicia said that it is difficult to find this flower here. Norman picked one and thought, but why is there a whole field of flowers here? Suddenly a noise came, startling him and making him turn his head to look. When he saw that it was Finn, Norman sighed uncomfortably and replied, can't you leave me alone? He also said awkwardly, I'm sorry, sir, there aren't many people in this area of the castle, it's best not to go in here. Norman walked past Finn, he still insisted, this is my duty, I can't. Then he reached out and took a small sword from Finn's pocket. He swung it hard forward. Finn closed his eyes tightly in fear, later he curiously opened his eyes. Norman looked into a dark corner and asked loudly, who are you, what are you doing here? A figure slowly appeared. That person gently took off the cloak and hat covering them. Then this person spoke, Lord Norman Diaz. It was Ophelia, she smiled happily and replied, we finally meet. She walked over to Norman and said happily, we finally meet. When he saw that it was Ophelia, Finn couldn't hide his joy and shouted, Miss Ophelia, I didn't expect you to be here. Norman heard this and was stunned, Ophelia. Recalling Nicholas's words that he couldn't get through the 10 years during his absence. He said with a red face and cautiously, if it weren't for Ophelia's help. When he knew the other party was Ophelia, Norman politely and gently replied, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you at first. Nicholas has told me a lot about you, it's an honor. She smiled and replied, it's an honor for me too. Then Ophelia pulled up her hood and said hesitantly, I apologize for this hood, I don't mean to be disrespectful, a woman on the run can't show her face. Suddenly he noticed that Ophelia's index fingertip was glowing strangely. Norman was a little stunned, his eyes wide with surprise. He walked over and asked gently, were you the one who planted the Teresia flowers here? Ophelia exclaimed in surprise with sparkling eyes, oh, you know the name of this flower? Norman began to tell the story, a girl sold this flower in Catham Square, I heard that Teresia is a wildflower that only grows in the western region, usually used by fortune tellers. However, there are still a few people. A familiar vision appeared in Ophelia's mind. Then, Norman gently continued, use them to make beautiful wreaths. Hearing this, Ophelia's tears flowed. She gently wiped away her tears and said, it seems like we have a lot to talk about. She looked at the Teresia flowers on the ground and continued, if you are willing to listen to my story. Rewind to the past, about 10 years ago, Ophelia was lying unconscious on the ground, someone came over and saw this and said, wait, that's Ophelia, the woman on Romdak's wanted poster. Your brother, Nicholas, found me lying unconscious in the middle of the road. Suddenly someone rushed over and grabbed Ophelia's hand tightly. It was Nicholas, he frowned and demanded sternly, do what I say, otherwise you will be imprisoned for the rest of your life. Ophelia recounted, you see, I am a survivor of Nyx's massacre at Melfont Manor. Because Nicholas thought that the curse on his brother and the dark power that destroyed the Melfont family all originated from one side, in short, I am a useful piece of evidence for him to find out the truth. At this time, Nyx's henchman came over and said, the path of the dark god Arfo will lead your souls into the deepest hell, the evangelist. Hearing this familiar and terrifying voice, Ophelia shouted in panic, Nyx's henchman. Not missing a second, she grabbed the rope and pulled Nicholas down. He was a little stunned, while Ophelia dragged Nicholas and ran away together. When Nicholas noticed this, he was stunned, and it turned out that we shared a common enemy. Realizing this coincidence, the corners of Nicholas's mouth slightly curled up. He slowly approached Ophelia. marking the beginning of a decade-long camaraderie between the hunter and the evangelist. Now, Norman and Finn were sitting quietly listening to Ophelia's story. After listening, Finn exclaimed in astonishment, "I thought it was a love story." Norman only smiled and replied, "It seems more like an adventure story." Then he said calmly, "May I ask, over the years, what has made you sacrifice yourself to hunt down Nyx's evangelists?" This made Ophelia silent for a while. She looked down with extremely sad eyes. Ophelia fidgeted, clenching her hands, and replied, "It's because of her, to make up for what she had to go through because of me." He also remembered Nicholas's words, Alicia Melfont, for 10 years of Ophelia's life, only that name has influenced her. Realizing this, Norman wasn't very happy. He gently asked, "And you used to make wreaths for her?" Ophelia only nodded slightly in response. She also sincerely said, "I hunt down Nyx's evangelists for 2 reasons. First, to expose the real culprits and publicly confront the scoundrels. Second, for Alicia's safety." Hearing this, Norman glanced at the Teresa flowers and nodded, feeling, surely every flower here is a prayer for her best friend. Hearing this encouraging word, Ophelia was also a little happy in her heart. Ophelia looked at the Teresa flowers and said affectionately, "People believe that Teresa flowers will bring good luck if they don't wither within 7 days. I planted flowers here so that luck will smile on Alicia's future." Norman, sitting next to her, still wondered, "Aren't you angry at her for offering a reward for your capture?" She shook her head and replied, "Not really." She gently touched the Teresa flower and said softly, "I don't expect anything more from her." Norman thought in astonishment, that means Alicia knows about this. She knew that Miss Alicia had no other choice. He saw Ophelia breaking the stem of a Teresa flower. She gently raised it, as if she wanted to give him that flower. Norman took the flower. He looked at it for a while and said, "I thought you wanted to keep them alive for as long as possible." Ophelia smiled happily and replied, "Luck is generous giving, Lord Norman. I give you this lucky gift hoping you will share it with others." Hearing this, Norman was a little confused, but his cheeks were still red for some unknown reason. At the foot of the stairs in the castle, unspoken feelings bloomed. The secret emotions that I tried to hide. He held the flower tightly and replied, "I will definitely do that, because luck is generous giving." Scene changed to the next day. At Melfont Manor, there was a burst of laughter, ha ha ha. Alicia held the paper and said excitedly, "Look at this, Erica." She took it and read, "A letter from Nicholas Diaz." Seeing this, Erica was a little stunned, her face blank, not knowing what to say. "The Diaz family owes her a great favor for this invaluable help. I want to pass on the word that her favor will be repaid in the most worthy way." After reading it, Alicia burst out laughing and said, "Ha ha ha," he said, "owes her a great favor." After reading it, Erica felt that there was something unusual. Is this really the Nicholas Diaz we know? She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and nodded in affirmation, "Yes, it's Nicholas Diaz." Alicia returned to her original state and continued, "The isolation room for prisoners places a heavy burden on the Imperial Treasury. Summary execution will help reduce unnecessary expenses." Suddenly someone calmly raised their hand in front of her. It was Nicholas. He firmly and seriously said, "I object." Seeing this, Alicia angrily thought, again, this thorn always gets in my way in every council meeting. And even at the end, not at the conference room before the founding anniversary. At this time, an arrogant person came in front of Alicia and said, "It has been a long time since you put a bounty on the fugitive Ophelia, but she is still free. You don't even want to catch her, do you? You don't care that she could put the entire aristocracy at risk." She frowned angrily and asked, "What?" Alicia gritted her teeth angrily and replied, "Just wait until she is imprisoned in front of me." Just then Nicholas came over. He frowned and seriously complained, "That's too rude, Miss Melfont." He clicked his tongue and asked, "Are you a miss of a close family or a fishmonger in the market, TSK?" Alicia was angry, her face stiff and her throat tight. "Did you just call me a fishmonger?" Then she was like a fire, growling, "Grr, say it again, come on, calm down, miss." Lucky for him that he wasn't arrogant. Erica at this time stood silently thinking about a few things. "I'm sorry, I once said that you were too short to be in my sight, hee. Thinking about it, there have been many incidents between his glass of wine and your dress." Alicia smiled wryly and uncomfortably, a lot and obviously intentional. Erica now seemed to understand and asked again, "So in the end he had to receive a well-deserved punishment for his boundless gratitude. It's really a big victory." "Dear miss," she nodded in response, "of course." Then Erica discovered that there was something hidden behind the letter. She took it out and showed it to Alicia, saying, "There is another letter." She quickly opened it and exclaimed, "It's Teresa flowers." It is said that Teresa flowers will bring good luck if they are still blooming after a week. She is too familiar with this belief, isn't she? The affectionate image of Norman appeared with the Teresa flower. "I will definitely do that." Imagine how surprised I was to see a field full of flowers right in the mansion. Ophelia was also delighted in tears and believed that, because luck is generous giving, they have been waiting for me in a place that is rarely visited in the castle. and they are beautiful. Norman took the Teresa flower and put it in the vase, happily exclaiming, "It hasn't withered. I sent her a Teresia flower that I kept blooming for 7 days. If what people say about this flower is true, then we will definitely meet again. Because that is the lucky day that I have always been waiting for," sending her the most affectionate words, Norman Diaz. Seeing her reading seriously, Erica wondered and called out, "Miss." Alicia held the letter and said, "It seems that there is a field of Teresia flowers in Diaz Mansion." Erica asked back in astonishment, "A field of Teresia flowers?" She nodded in affirmation and sadness, "Yes, that means Ophelia is hiding there." She sighed and continued, "Do you think will luck come to me one day?" Erica nodded in response, "Definitely, miss." She looked up with affection and said, "Definitely." Just then there was a knock on the door. Alicia ordered, "Come in." The door opened, and the person who came in made her and Erica a little stunned. The door had been open for a while, but the other person hadn't said anything. Alicia was annoyed that it was too slow and complained, "You're wasting time, what's wrong?" The guy stammered in fear, "Miss." He bowed his head and reported in a rush, "Lord Philip Morfolk has returned the engagement ring," bowing. Hearing this, Alicia was excited, the corners of her mouth slightly curved up. She smiled cunningly and said, "Luck may smile, but it never smiles on me." Erica shouted in fear, "Miss." Alicia clenched her fist and said, "All right, then I have to look at the ring first." Her expression was extremely terrifying. "He will have to pay if it's not the ring I bought." Norman gently put Antoinette on his lap and stroked it, but it seemed that his mind was attracted by the sunset outside. I don't know what thoughts dared to disturb his heart, his golden eyes shining with an indescribable sadness. This scene of a melancholy handsome man fell into Finn's eyes and was added with 100 layers of filters. He reluctantly commented secretly, "He will really be exhausted if he keeps acting like he's a bird trapped in a cage." Just then Norman spoke, "Don't worry, Finn," startling him, thinking that the assessment he had just made in his head had been discovered by the other party. He didn't realize his emotions, slowly continued, "I don't blame you. I know you came here under my father's orders." Suddenly, the burden on his shoulders was lifted by others. Finn couldn't help but scratch his head and smile happily. "What a relief, thank you for understanding me, sir." Before he could be happy for more than 3 seconds, Norman spoke again as if to extinguish it, however. He looked up at Finn, his eyes filled with reproach. "I don't understand why you don't let me go out for a walk. You are the one responsible here, right?" Norman gently continued the words he had left unfinished. "You are too tense, not like your brother Morton at all, whether intentionally or unintentionally." Every word was like the worst stab to a person who is the youngest in the family. Finn even heard the sound of a thud close to his ear. Did he just compare me with his brother? No matter how broken his heart was, he had to complete the task of reassurance first. "It is true that I was ordered to imprison, protect you, but nothing can stop me from bringing new news from outside to you." Norman didn't pursue the issue just now, calmly went along with the other party's words, "All right, you make me curious." But Finn didn't reveal it immediately, but started turning around, as if afraid that someone was eavesdropping on their conversation in a corner. After observing everything, he leaned close to Norman's ear and whispered, "Your father will visit Melfont Manor tomorrow." Then Finn lowered his voice even more, revealing the most important information he wanted to convey. "Because of the trip, he will be absent for a period of time. You can finally." The sentence was left unfinished with a lot of meaning, but that was enough to make Norman's eyes widen. Then he sat up straight and asked back, "Where is he going?" This unrestrained tone made Finn startled. His soul seemed to leave his body. He was so panicked that his eyes were wet and his hands were shaking, his voice sobbing very pitifully. "Please speak softly, I didn't intend to tell you this." Norman seemed not to understand the meaning in it, and continued to repeat the issue he was wondering about. "So why is my father visiting the Melfont family?" Finn hesitated, not knowing whether he should answer or not. At the same time, in the luxurious space of the mansion, a confident voice summarized the current situation. "Miss Melfont has expressed her gratitude for the invaluable help of my son that made her escape from Tantaros." Milan, the former master of the Diaz family, frowned slightly as if he did not agree with that result, but Norman only fulfilled the predetermined duty of a knight. Morton listened silently to his one-sided words. "Therefore, we still owe her for bringing my eldest son home." Deep in his golden eyes shone an undeniable determination. "This is a favor that we must repay." Back in the peaceful room on the other side, Norman quietly watched the scene dyed in burnt orange. His slender hand gently stroked Antoinette's head, his calm voice unable to hear the emotions inside. "They should know that." Then he turned to Finn with a bright smile, uttering words full of certainty. "That is a favor that I must repay." A soft click sounded, and the box was finally opened. But what was inside made Alicia frown in confusion. The small and extremely ordinary piece of jewelry was quietly lying there, as if mocking the mood of the person outside. "Is that just the ring?" She picked up the box with a bit of amusement, not knowing whether to call him a scumbag or a freeloader. Just then, the servant standing next to her also lightly reported, Lord Philip said that there is no reason to return the gifts that have been given to his family and friends. This nonsense reason made Alicia even more contemptuous. So he kept all my gold and jewels. It's true that there is no pain without comparison, and only sent back the ring. Worse, all this insult is aimed at one purpose, to cancel the engagement? Erica frowned and took the stack of papers that were sent along with it. Let's see what nonsense he wrote. But just glancing at the messy words on it, she was so angry that she trembled. That treacherous man. Alicia saw the other party's excessive reaction, couldn't help but worry and ask what was wrong. Erica tried to keep calm to recount the main idea of the letter. He used the rumor between Nyx and you, miss, as an excuse. Just a few short words made the heat rush straight to Alicia's head. What? She couldn't believe her eyes, and hurriedly ran over to read it carefully. Let me see. Every word in that letter hit her eyes. Dear Alicia, glad that you have returned safely, knowing that you have returned to where you belong. I can't do anything but feel extremely relieved. It's just that the scene on the sender's side is not at all similar to that text. Ha ha ha. The guilty fiancé in it, at this moment, is one hand cocking wood, one hand hugging a beautiful woman. However, the one sent to Alicia, who shoulders the Morfolk family, is standing next to the image of the dice that has just been thrown, creating an extremely ridiculous scene. He used the way of playing with dice to apply to the girl who once loved him very much. I can't turn a blind eye and ignore the corrupt rumors between the heretical priest and my fiancé. And at this moment, Philip Morfolk, Alicia's fiancé, is sighing regretfully. Mara's breasts, I almost got them. The evidence and rumors written in the letter completely helped him become an innocent and extremely saintly person. When I was told that my Alicia spent an untold amount of time joking with a healthy young man throughout the countryside. If anyone didn't know the truth, based on these words, they might cry for Philip. I was very confused and worried about her promised chastity. They didn't know that the one who seemed to have been betrayed, at this moment, was attracted by the beautiful figure. Oh. Not only that, but also infatuatedly said sweet words to someone else completely. Here she is, Petra, my love, the girl who is wearing a red and seductive dress is none other than Petra Landry, the opera singer and Philip's lover. The bright and familiar smile that she gave to Philip was enough to accuse him according to the very words in the letter, even though the laws of Lothens are very clear about the betrayal of the engaged person, but ridiculously, the perpetrator wants to use the non-existent leniency for the innocent. I no longer have feelings for her. Instead, I want to stop by canceling our engagement. Alicia was furious after reading it. A prodigal son with a prostitute. It's just that Philip didn't know. What he did didn't hurt her a bit. He wanted to end it all. I'm too happy to do so. Speaking of this, she suddenly stopped. All the information about Philip once again appeared in Alicia's head, but there really is no one like him anymore. There is no more useless nobleman to be my husband without affecting Alfred's inheritance. But Erica didn't think so. Even for a fool like Philip, this is still too reckless. He wanted to end everything with you, miss, not even a week after your return. There must be another meaning hidden. Her words reminded Alicia. She vaguely remembered the letter she received not long ago. Just like Ophelia said, all these things happened in just 1 week. A familiar figure rushed into her mind, along with a plan that was gradually being formed. She must have predicted it. If so, I will use her properly. Alicia didn't say too much, just clenched her hand and ordered, you know what to do. Prepare. Not worthy of being her close secretary. Erica immediately understood her master's intention, quickly responding, yes, miss. Then the two of them continued to move. Suddenly a crowd commotion in the distance attracted Alicia's attention. What's going on? Someone noticed her coming and immediately ran to report the situation. It's a guest, miss, you will want to meet him. This different title surprised Alicia. Him. For her, only one person was worthy of being called that. The familiar platinum hair appeared, making her face turn red. Could it be? Before Alicia could be happy for long, a shrill voice rang out along with the rude sound of the door opening. When did I become a guest in my own mansion? This character just came on stage, and it made Alicia freeze. What are you doing here? The boy with radiant but somewhat serious beauty was standing right at the door, not responding to her question. Alfred. Alfred repeated his question a little angrily. When did I become a guest in my own mansion? Just then another person came rushing over. Young master. Then she turned to the servant from earlier and scolded him sternly. How dare you mistake him for a guest? How stupid. This is Seymour, Alicia, and Alfred's nanny. Not only that, but she also dragged the innocent secretary into the situation, and Erica too. So the two started arguing back and forth. Seymour annoyedly questioned the age-old problem. How long are you going to keep the young master in that shelter? Daughter? Erica suddenly got shot while lying down. She explained tiredly, I'm very busy, I don't have the leisure to sit idly. Alicia didn't want to be dragged into that argument, so she quickly turned to explain to Alfred, just ignore them, honey, it's just that they are very surprised to see you back after so long. No one treats you like a guest in your own home, you are the rightful owner of the Melfont family. It was just that the boy's subsequent answer surprised her extremely. That's what you want, Miss Alicia, you have never cared whether I want to become the owner of the family or not. For a kid at such an age, it is difficult for anyone to possess such mature thoughts, but Alfred is not an ordinary child, you see. The boy turned around decisively and left, leaving only a firm sentence, I don't want to, this is your life so I can't just take it away from you. The cold assessment and attitude hit Alicia like a blow, making her heart skip a beat, thud. That night, she tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. The boy is no longer the little Alfred that I know. The more she thought about it, the more tired she felt. Hey, the boy has grown up in a way that I don't want at all. The image of the happy couple together appeared, in contrast to Alicia's melancholy situation, if his parents were still alive. Along with that was Alfred's smiling face without any worries. The boy was living true to his age. The development as it has made Alicia unable to bear it anymore. Everything came rushing in, but the result was really terrible. She buried her face deeply into the roots. Sobbing silently, I am really very sorry, both of you, I have ruined the boy. Just as her emotions were surging, suddenly there was a knock on the door outside the room. Knock knock, may I come in, miss? Alicia sat up in a panic, wait. Then she reached out and wiped away the tears still lingering on her eyelashes, comforting herself in her heart, it's okay, this is nothing. After confirming that she had restored her image as a strong woman, she solemnly ordered, come in. The heavy door of the bedroom opened accordingly, click. But the person who appeared at the door surprised her. The person who came was Seymour. It was just the tray of objects in her hand that made Alicia pay attention. What is that? She didn't say a word, just focused on doing her job. The soft cloth was dipped in water and then wrung out to a certain humidity. Then Seymour came closer and gently wiped Alicia's eyes. You don't want to wake up with swollen eyes tomorrow, this will help. She smiled and took the towel, applying it to her own eyes, and didn't hide it. You see through everything. Seymour laughed and replied, of course, I raised you. Then she mentioned the matter this morning. Even though she was busy arguing with Erica at the time, she still observed everything. Young Master Alfred must have made you sad. Alicia lifted the corners of her mouth to reassure the other party, as if also wanting to soothe her own heart. It's okay, he's just going through a period of rebellion. Of course her emotions couldn't escape Seymour's eyes, it's just that she didn't expose it, just looked at her with loving eyes. After a moment of silence, she decided to tell Alicia something. We took young Master Alfred to another shelter after you went missing, and in the meantime, he said. The boy's appearance appeared according to Seymour's story. At that time he still tried to appear strong, but the tears in his eyes betrayed his master. If Miss Alicia is dead, what is the use of doing this? Seymour still analyzed everything softly. He knows that he must fulfill the obligations of the heir to the Melfont family, but honestly, nothing can make him happier than being with his aunt. Alicia listened and couldn't restrain her emotions. Finally, her eyes that had just dried, became wet again. She pursed her lips and brought the towel to her eyes, her mind still focused on Seymour's words. You don't know how relieved we were when you safely returned to us. Every word was like warm water flowing through Alicia's heart, successfully making her bury her face and sob again. She didn't bother to restrain herself anymore, buried her head in Seymour's arms and burst into tears. It's been too long, I have gradually forgotten what is really important. Deep in Alicia's heart, she remembered a truth. I thought that only I was alone in protecting the people I loved. Seymour gently hugged her, patting her on the back. The thoughts were still swirling in her head, but it was as warm as the nanny's hug, without realizing that they were the people who always kept the hope burning in me. After a long while, Seymour let go, gently looking at the girl in front of her. You must be very tired. Without knowing when, Alicia had fallen asleep with red eyes. She gently took the blanket and covered her. The surrounding space was extremely quiet. Along with that, another event took place. When I fell asleep, Ophelia's night came again. This situation was like a drop of water dripping into memory. This time it was to let me know the past that I had never heard. The worried eyes of a man appeared. This is Alicia's father. Next to him was Idio, the clergyman in the sanctuary of Melfont Mansion. Lord Melfont worriedly turned to ask the nanny, how is my daughter, Mrs. Seymour? She hesitated and lowered her head, answering, sir. Then she announced in the gentlest voice, trying not to affect his mood, the miss has been sick like this every year, but never this bad. He is no longer conscious. Alicia Melfont, 5 years old, was lying on the bed, seeming to be groaning nonstop under the torment of the illness. Lord Melfont's eyes clearly showed sadness. It pains me to see Alicia like this, but I can't let a girl whose name I don't even know treat my daughter. Then he turned away coldly, leaving only one order, make sure to take the girl back to where she belongs. But at this time Idio spoke up in a hurry, sir, this girl carries within her a divine power beyond imagination. He assured Lord Melfont firmly, sharing a little with your daughter will not be dangerous. Then Idio emphasized again, let the girl do what has been assigned. These words in Ophelia's ears were like some kind of sign. She quickly flashed in front of Lord Melfont. Then she went straight to Alicia's bed. It was just that Ophelia was not in a hurry to touch her, but stood still by the bed observing that face in pain from the illness. She couldn't hold back the emotions in her heart, without knowing when the corners of her eyes were already wet. Please don't die, little Teresa Flower. Then Ophelia reached out her small hand. Suddenly a strange golden light flashed in her hand. You will not wither, you will bloom again. The childish voice echoed throughout the room, like a fresh bud. As soon as the words were spoken, a powerful force enveloped both little girls. A wind from nowhere rose in the space, whoosh. The subsequent development made Seymour cover her mouth in emotion, unbelievably. Alicia's breathing gradually became even, and her complexion was much better. The miss is back to normal. At this time Alicia remembered that memory. Ophelia saved me even before Nyx's curse fell on the family. The next morning, the 5-year-old girl vaguely opened her eyes. An unfamiliar but familiar face appeared. She had been adopted by the Melfont family. Ophelia saw that she was awake and smiled brightly, seemingly unaware of the reason why she was in this luxurious place. To keep me alive. The 5-year-old Alicia looked at the friend her age in surprise. This staring made Ophelia so fidgety that she clenched her hands together. Unexpectedly, a second later, Alicia took the initiative to reach out and take the other's hand. Then she looked at her with sparkling eyes like a kitten, asking in a spoiled voice, "What's your name?" Not knowing for the look, or for the intimate skin contact, Ophelia immediately flustered, her whole body turning red like a boiled shrimp. Then she shyly answered that question, I don't have a name. Alicia didn't need to think, casually saying a sentence, then it's Ophelia. These simple words made her blue eyes shine with happiness. Then Alicia came closer to confirm the opinion of the person in front of her. From now on I'll call you Ophelia, okay? But she waited for a long time and didn't see an answer, so she switched to inviting her to do something else. Come on, let's play together. This quick development made Ophelia unable to react. Her heart kept beating wildly, thump thump thump. Then she fidgeted and looked at Lord Melfont with sparkling eyes. He was a little helpless, not knowing what to do, but still followed the wishes of the two children. If you want to, you can stay, and that's how Ophelia, the saint, is found in the forest. This permission made Ophelia so happy that she smiled brightly. At the same time tears of happiness spilled out, because she had been brought to a noble family to build a friendship in the clergy. From this moment, she was considered a new member of the Melfont family. Her mission was to maintain life of her sister. Fortunately, the two children's feelings were harmonious with each other. The memory was changed again. This time it was a pouring rain. Whoosh, maybe I have been lying to myself for so long. The figure that Alicia hated for many years also appeared. Nyx came to the Melfont family 10 years ago. He was fascinated by Ophelia's power. Nyx looked casually at Alicia lying on the ground, then asked suspiciously, "Are you the only one here? That's strange. I swear she's hiding somewhere around here." Suddenly a call came, Alicia, making him startled and widening his eyes. Along with Ophelia's worried voice, "Alicia, where are you? Answer me." Nyx's eyes caught sight of Alicia's swollen ankle. At that moment, a disgusting plan was built in his head, making him unable to help but curl his lips, and he saved my life. And of course, the person who was trying to run in the rain, Ophelia, was not at fault. She was looking for her sister. Suddenly a dazzling light flashed beside her, attracting her attention. The scene of Nyx kneeling beside Alicia, along with the healing power bursting out, caught Ophelia's eyes. That was also the origin of everything, if she had to take responsibility. Even in the memories, Alicia couldn't help but sigh. It's just because she was too naive when she saw herself as a child in Nyx, and held on to the hope that he would be there to help me. Alicia had a lot of regrets. If the novel had found me sooner. At that moment Ophelia clenched her hand and made a decision. I want to protect you to the end, Alicia. This choice was not out of her expectation. Yes, she always took the blame for herself. Ophelia reached out and proposed to Nyx, not knowing that this was the action that started the subsequent tragic series of events. Do you want to come with us? This was no different from a mouse coming to the cat's mouth. Of course he wouldn't refuse, and nothing could stop Nyx's insane obsession with her. Alicia at that time muttered in panic, "No," feeling extremely regretful in her heart. Even if the novel had come to me sooner. The her of the past was so scared that tears welled up. Don't hold his hand, Ophelia. It's just that in any development, I can never change the past. In her heart she screamed in pain, "No." Alicia immediately woke up. Hitting her eyes was the familiar ceiling of the mansion. Alicia's face was without any blood, tears streaming down her face. Even her breathing became rapid. Gasp, gasp. She tried to regulate her state, her mind quickly analyzing. It's an illusion of the past. Isn't that disgusting book going to stop bothering me? Then she stepped down from the bed as if to go somewhere. What is it trying to say? What do you want from me? Alicia went straight to the balcony. The glass door was opened with a soft click. As soon as her hand felt the coolness of the stone slab, her mind also calmed down completely. Wait. The passing wind blew her hair. At the same time a bold guess appeared, maybe I'm not the only one being disturbed by Ophelia's night. Alicia quickly caught this information, that is, it keeps going into my dreams. Without warning, every detail began to combine together, helping her get closer to the truth, perhaps what the book is doing to me. Finally, she came to a conclusion that even Alicia had to be surprised at, is also doing to her. Erica was on her way to the mansion when she saw a familiar figure. "Dear Miss." She hurriedly ran over, wrapping her scarf around Alicia. "It's still very cold in the morning, you shouldn't be standing out here." It's just that she didn't react to these words, just muttered to herself, "I shouldn't have let her leave." This strange state made Erica a little bewildered. "Miss." Alicia looked down, deep in thought swirling in her mind. "I should have kept Ophelia and interrogated her, she should have told me the truth." Deep in her purple eyes appeared indescribable emotions, mixed with regret and self-blame. The scene of that day appeared clearly. "Get out of Lot Hens, I never want to see you again." Alicia still stood rooted to the spot, as if unable to escape her past, even knowing that it was not the right thing to do. I still chased her away. At this moment, the emotions in her heart had completely exploded, because I was afraid to face the truth. Despite the humid air of the early morning, Alicia still stood quietly on the balcony blaming herself, even knowing that it was not the right thing to do. I still chased her away. Then she uttered a confession, because I was afraid to face the truth, making Erica bewildered, not knowing what to do. After a while, she gently comforted her master, exposing the harsh reality is not always the best way, sometimes you should also run away. Those words, like an anchor pulling Alicia back to reality, and every time we take a step back, we can see a part of the picture that we missed. Alicia had also calmed down, looking up and smiling teasingly. "I've given you too many tasks, haven't I?" Erica acted as if it was nothing and replied, "I just want to say that I will never blame you if you choose to run away. Because deep in her heart, there is also a desire to be fulfilled, as long as you promise to come home to us." Alicia was so moved that she wanted to cry again. "Erica." But before she could complete the performance, it was interrupted by a sneeze. She sniffed and asked the other party, "I should have stayed inside as you said, but why did you come here so early in the morning?" Then Erica seriously announced an important matter. "We have guests coming to visit." Alicia annoyedly speculated, "Are there more members to keep an eye on?" She hurriedly explained, "No, miss, this time it's the Diaz family." This name made Alicia jump. Diaz. In her head she vaguely remembered a low voice. "The Diaz family owes you a great favor for this invaluable help. I want to pass on the word that her favor will be repaid in the most worthy way." She couldn't believe it and asked in her heart, "Is that what he meant?" Then she asked the secretary confusedly, "I thought Lord Nicholas was responsible for overseeing Nyx's seal." "Isn't he in Bardeth?" Erica patiently confirmed the information. "Yes, he's not the guest." Alicia's mind quickly jumped. After filtering out the identity of the other party, her cheeks couldn't help but blush. But to be sure, she still shyly asked, "Is it Lord Norma?" Erica knew what she was thinking, hurriedly interrupted, "It's his father, Lord Milan, who will be visiting." This person successfully pulled dark clouds across Alicia's face. Her heart also fell straight into the abyss. Thud. Then she coldly replied, "I know." Early that morning, the people in the city couldn't help but stir and gossip at the scene before them. A large number of carriages passed by, along with the exclamations of the people around. "That's right, the most influential master in the capital, look at the number of his attendants." In another corner, Alicia was adjusting her clothes while instructing her nephew, "Alfred, I know you are sad for me, but this time you must behave properly." She reluctantly begged the boy, "Just for a few days, Lord Milan is a very important guest." But these words made Alfred feel that his intelligence was being insulted. The boy turned his face away uncomfortably. "Am I a fool?" Erica standing nearby explained softly, "This is the first time I've seen the miss this nervous." Seymour smiled and asked her back, "You've never seen Lord Milan, have you?" At this time she replied with some worry, "Who exactly is he?" "I mean, I know, but..." She understood the other party's emotions, slowly introducing, Lord Milan Diaz. His dignified appearance seemed to appear according to Seymour's words. He is the only man still alive who has influenced the founding ideal of Lot Hens. She continued to popularize knowledge for the person next to her. People say that he is the embodiment of everything that the men of the empire are always striving to fight for. According to legend, the first master of the Diaz family was the lover of the goddess Mara. It is no exaggeration to say that Milan can be seen as the chosen person, who has bestowed upon his lineage the ability to inherit divine power. Milan Diaz is no exception. And the empire has prevented many crises thanks to his heroic feat. Above all, it is his talent that makes people worship him. Milan also contributed to the family's salt mine, to advance the establishment and training of the knights of the Diaz family. Thanks to him making a solid foundation, the entire career of the family has also been promoted. Now they are the most elite warriors in Lot Hens. It is said that the most elite knights come from the Diaz family. Seymour continued to recount the information she knew. Recently Milan wanted to cede this position, but surely he did not lose contact with the management of the empire. He immediately took responsibility for the family when his son, Nicholas, was tasked with solving the problem of Nyx. Also for that reason, this man is a big figure of the current era. Above all, he is still the spokesperson of the Cathedral Council, and the Emperor trusts him very much. According to Seymour's final assessment, Milan Diaz is the pride of the Lothens Empire. The other party has also arrived at the Melfont family. That appearance made Erica unable to help but whisper, "He looks more like a rigid master, an old man holding power, right?" Seymour sternly interrupted her, "Watch your words. Erica, don't let me have to remind you that just one small mistake can ruin this meeting." Seeing that the distinguished guest had arrived, Alicia solemnly came forward to greet him, "Welcome to Melfont Mansion, sir." Milan did not respond, only directed his gaze at her. This attitude made Alicia stand still, not knowing how to react. Suddenly the next development startled her. A noble person like Milan actually knelt down in front of her. "Please forgive the interruption I have caused." He lowered his head, a hint of apology appeared on his face. "However, because I am a father, I cannot avoid it, and the love I have for my son has made me personally express my gratitude to the dear Miss." Alicia hurried closer, also lowering her body and reaching out to the other party. "I am the one who should thank you." This action made Milan unable to help but praise, "You are so kind." Then he looked towards the car and continued, "We have brought gifts from the family's mine, but compared to what you have done for us, how dim it is." Alicia bowed elegantly, really grateful for this heart. "Thank you, sir. The Diaz family is always welcome here. I hope you will stay as long as you like. I hope you will not refuse the honor of serving our most esteemed guest." She said that, and Mila wasn't polite anymore, "So if I may, could you entertain the person who came with me?" Alicia happily replied to him, "Of course, your guests are also ours." As soon as the words were spoken, the carriage behind suddenly made a soft click. Alicia's eyes looked towards that direction, and immediately widened in surprise. Countless thoughts also appeared. My return from the threshold of death was welcomed with vulgar rumors and the betrayal of my fiance. That person slowly got out of the car, not knowing the thoughts in Alicia's head, just one thing after another, as if the universe wanted me to collapse. So what mess is fate going to arrange for me now? The familiar figure that she had missed for the past few days, at this moment had really appeared right in front of her. Even though she had been seen at such a close distance, Alicia still didn't dare to believe it. "If my miserable life has any signs, everything can only go downhill from here." Norman smiled and clasped his hands in front of his chest, politely calling her name, "Miss Alicia." She was still delirious in exclamation, "But the truth is that Alicia Melfont is stronger than I thought." Then unconsciously whispered, "Lord Norman." But at this moment, Alicia seemed to remember something. Her body suddenly froze and covered her mouth. It was just that the other party had slowly come closer to her, as if wanting to pull her out of the scattered thoughts in her head. "To defeat a survivor like me, it takes more than a few criticisms." At the same time, giving Alicia the strength to make a decision, "And I will survive no matter what happens." Goddess Mara smiled and emphasized again, "Even if I can only change the story." Alicia's appearance lay still there, really not knowing what was going on, a little. The novel quickly opened, combined with Mara's even voice like a reminder that could not be ignored. "The rest is up to her." She gently said a cruel truth, "But remember, child, what must happen will still continue, no matter what happens." Suddenly the scene changed, a cruel feeling and a piercing scream rang out, "Ah ah ah ah." The killer who had just taken action slowly walked away, calmly analyzing the situation with his teammates. "It's number 23, the one who just escaped hasn't gone far." Then he gave the order, "We must quickly catch up with them." These words made Jack Vines, the second son of the Vines family standing next to him, sigh. "Hey." Then he said softly, "Not like you at all, Ophelia." Hearing her name, she turned back in confusion, revealing the dark red bloodstains on her face and her cold blue eyes. Jack slowly came closer, walking and announcing, "All the heretics who participated in the sacrificial ritual are dead." Then he consciously assessed the current situation, "And Nyx's identity is also in our hands, they can't." Before he could finish speaking, Ophelia interrupted him, "Jack Vines." She reminded coldly, "If you don't agree with me, then feel free to return to Diaz Mansion." This attitude immediately made him cringe. "I'm sorry." Ophelia also didn't react, just gently raised the weapon in her hand. "I have failed many times." Her tear-stained face was reflected in the shiny blade, "And I refuse to repeat that mistake." Ophelia hurriedly turned around and left, leaving only a light sentence, "I'll go first. If you make a decision, let me know." Jack silently watched her back, couldn't help but sigh. I know that he is very sensitive when mentioning Alicia Melfont. It's just that he still couldn't understand, but Nyx is in our hands, and Miss Melfont is still alive and well. What reason still makes Ophelia concerned? What makes him become like that? In the distance, Ophelia clenched the sword in her hand and said to herself, "It's okay now, now." The quiet forest suddenly rang out with a familiar name, Alicia. Returning to Melfont Manor, Milan asked Alicia with concern, you don't look well, Miss Melfont. She forced a laugh and asked back, haha, oh, really? Then she explained embarrassedly to him, I'm sorry for not being able to welcome such an important guest properly. Milan immediately reached out and interrupted, please, no need. He said in a low voice to reassure, you have been through a lot, your priority now is to recover physically and mentally. The distinguished guest has said so. Alicia could only smile wryly, haha, just how can I do that, but... Her eyes glanced slightly in another direction, the reason that makes me worried. Norman's bright smile made her even more tremble, it's because of your son. Alicia vaguely remembered the scene outside just now, he hasn't said a word to me since we met. In her heart she also knew that she was at fault, of course, I was the one who abandoned him, with just a letter, but... The current situation made her so angry that she wanted to shout, until we got to Catham he was very kind and friendly, why did he suddenly change his face? Speaking of this, Alicia suddenly remembered something, so she glanced at another position, but... Alfred's bright expression made her confused, what's wrong with that kid? As soon as the question was put in her head, the boy had consciously spoken out his assessment, he looks exactly like Lord Rantis, that is the knight that Alfred admires very much. Hearing that Alicia also was startled and understood, the boy is fascinated by Norman Diaz's appearance? Erica standing behind saw these two opposite emotions, one was tired, and the other had bright eyes. She couldn't help but cover her mouth and sigh, the Melfont family really likes beauty, hey. Just then Norman suddenly turned his gaze to the front. Then he called softly, Miss Melfont, making Alicia startled and glanced over. Then he casually reminded, it's time for young Master Alfred to go to bed. Then he made a suggestion, so I think that we should end the dinner here. This sudden word was no different from lightning striking Alfred's ears, making the boy's face turn pale. Alicia replied calmly, you're right, but in her heart she asked thousands of question marks, is he serious? She confusingly screamed in her heart, he really wants to end dinner without saying a word? At this time Norman smiled and spoke out, but first I have a request. Then he shyly asked for her opinion, can you spare me a little time? It's just that Alicia wasn't happy at all, even a little worried, what? After the two moved outside, she angrily crossed her arms, coldly putting the problem to Norman, what do you want to talk about? The more she spoke, the more uncomfortable she felt, I thought you would treat me like a stranger, the other guy still looked innocent and out. Then as if realizing something very interesting, he smiled and reached out to touch his chin, I never thought so. Norman slowly came closer to the other party, however, if I behave, as I want to in front of everyone. Then he casually said his thoughts, then you will be very embarrassed. This ambiguous word made Alicia not understand anything, what? Norman explained his meaning with a red face, I have been holding it in because of the eyes around us. His emotions seemed to infect Alicia, making her unable to help but blush. After explaining, Norman came closer and asked a question as if he was hoping to be praised, did I do well? Alicia clenched her hands and stammered, ah. It's just that these words were not spoken, Norman didn't urge, still smiling and observing her. Finally she turned her face away, praising softly, yes, you did a good job. Just a few simple words, that made Norman happy. That sparkling emotion made Alicia a little dazzling, but she still cleared her throat and asked to the main point, ahem, so, why did you want to see me? She understood the man before her very well, I'm sure that you didn't bring me out here just to say that. Norman laughed awkwardly, haha, I hope you can help me with a matter. A moment later, Alfred's eyes brightly looked at the creature before him, wow. The boy liked it so much that he stared at it without stopping, I want to hug him so much. Antoinette didn't care about that small human, only focused on licking his legs. Norman smiled and allowed, feel free to do so, young Master Alfred. Alicia saw her nephew laughing so happily, and also felt happy, this child, then turned her thoughts to the person next to her, he had forgotten how much he had given me the cold shoulder just a few minutes ago. Two men, one big and one small, were crowding around the black cat. At this time Alicia asked, so, the thing you need help with is? She was a little afraid to believe what she thought, wanting me to be here with this little monster. Antoinette took advantage of everyone talking, escaping from Alfred's hand and jumping in another direction. Norman laughed and confirmed, yes, isn't he cute? At that time she also startlingly noticed the creature before her. It was friendly curled up on Alicia's lap. Alfred was a little jealous and commented, Antoinette seems to like you very much. It also rubbed its head to confirm the boy's words. Then the boy fearlessly uttered a fatal sentence, it doesn't like that knight over there much. Foon standing far away angrily muttered, feeding it is useless. Norman smiled gently, then sent a word to her, I hope you will cherish it. Alicia reached out to caress the kitten, a little red in the face and commented, ah well, he is also very cute. This action of her was like lightning striking Erica and Finn, oh my god, she happily thought, he told me to cherish Antoinette. Couldn't help but think more, or is it him? Just then a white butterfly flew over, attracting Antoinette's attention. It immediately jumped off Alicia and chased after it. This action made Alfred startled and exclaimed, "Oh." The boy hurriedly left the table to chase after. "Antoinette, where are you running?" Erica called out in panic, "Young master." She called back anxiously, "You can't run like that." The chaotic scene outside the courtyard made Alicia think to herself, the last time. This development successfully made her smile. When was everything this peaceful? Suddenly a person walked over, making Erica startled and turned around. At the same time the black cat also vigilantly called out, "Meow." Alfred panicked and hugged it tightly, "Antoinette." Then the boy suspiciously glanced over. "What is it?" The person who came was Gano. He smirked contemptuously, "Since when are these monsters allowed here?" This appearance made Alicia startled and stood up. "Gano." Norman also recognized the other party, "That man, I met in Catham." The image of him hugging Alicia appeared again in his mind, as clear as it had just happened yesterday. Gano had also seen him, so he bared his teeth provocatively. "I thought the source of information had something wrong. But Diaz is really here." Norman frowned a little uncomfortably. Alicia hurriedly spoke out to interrupt, "Gano, he is a guest of Melfont." Then she reminded sternly, "So please be proper." Norman still silently observed the newcomer. Then Alicia stood up and asked, "What wind suddenly brought you here?" Gano casually came closer and replied, "Is there a law that forbids me from coming here?" Outside in the garden, Finn stammered asking Alfred for his opinion. "Young master, shall we go play somewhere else for a bit?" Erica also worriedly spoke out, "Miss, may I talk to you about something?" Then she came closer to her master's ear and whispered, "I have some information, related to Petra Landry." Alicia became serious, turning to say to the newcomer, "You came at the right time, Gano, follow me quickly." Then she bowed slightly to Norman, "I'm sorry but I have to go first." She went straight, leaving only a light greeting, "See you next time." Not paying attention to his lost eyes, and the sorrowful whisper, "Miss Alicia." After the three people went inside, Alicia repeated in a low voice, "Petra Andre." She couldn't believe the new information, requesting to meet me. Erica was no less surprised. "Yes, miss." Alicia briefly analyzed everything. Clearly when mentioning her sister, Petra immediately changed her mind. She also guessed how angry she was when she received the letter. Alicia laughed contemptuously. "Ha, she's crazy." Erica asked softly, "How do you plan to deal with this?" She didn't need much time to think, immediately gave the order, "First of all, I will send Morfolk a warning, and call Petra Landry to meet me." Gano rested his chin and listened with interest to her plan, on the road Denra in the royal city. Alicia solemnly gave the time of the appointment, 3 days from today.